you guys off. I hit the go live button, but I didn't hit the go live and go live again. So I'm gonna quickly just start over and say what I said, and then we'll.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta hit it twice. Okay, so the definition that I pulled up for suffering was experience or to be subject to something bad or unpleasant, or to experience, physical or mental pain. It's just you'd rather have something pleasant.
Are we live?
Yeah, we're live now.
Oh, we're live. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, just after I did that quick definition that third time. So, but I think the definition Calm gave, like, that fits right in there. I think that was right on what I was saying. I think we all kind of have a good, agreeable definition for suffering, right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
I don't know if I would say suffering is unnecessary pain. And I know pain is one thing. I think hardship, going by Calm's definition, is it's part of life. Right? I think I may say suffering is something that we put on ourselves.
So you're saying suffering is an unnecessary pain or situation,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the question then would be, how would anyone think that they could know what is considered to be even necessary at any point in time? Like, you stub your toes, right? Stubbing your toes hurts, right? That's a form of suffering. Is that unnecessary to you?
Stubbing your toe,
stubbing the pain from it. Like, imagine you could stub. I'm sorry. Imagine you could stub your toe, but it didn't hurt. Do you think the pain part of it is necessary?
So it's not so much it's not stubbing your toe and the pain that is
the pain is necessary, though, Eni. The pain is necessary to let you know that you've damaged your toe. That's part of the body's function. So pain is absolutely necessary. Now, it gets complicated because, what are we talking about? Are we talking about emotional, and are we talking about
both
causing suffering to others or experiencing suffering in ourselves? Because if we know something is causing suffering needlessly, and that's the question, is it needful or needless? And this goes back to sort of my definition of what is love or what's right to do, right? So but I'm kind of the mind that suffering, as Annie said, is part of life. And it's a necessary part of life for a couple different reasons that I'll go into later.
I thought Annie said the opposite. I thought he was saying that suffering was the unnecessary pain, the things that you don't have to have in life, basically. Is that right, Annie? So, like, I
think pain is necessary. Pain is part of life. So going back to your stubbing my toe analogy, but I think the suffering comes when we keep doing the same thing to keep and keep kicking. I did this yesterday, this morning, into my son's room, living room, and I kicked dumbbells on the floor, and I think that's stupid, right? So I moved it. I moved the dumbbells. That way, it's not going to happen again. I mean, the suffering is if I left it there, came back, did it again. I kept doing it, and then looking at myself and saying, I don't know why I keep hurting my foot. That's suffering to me.
Okay, and so for you guys saying that pain is necessary, it's more just, I'm guessing you're saying that just because it's how you don't damage your body physically, right? Like, if you didn't feel the pain from stubbing your toe, then you could damage yourself and not know it. I'm guessing that's the area where we think we understand kind of the basic need for pain. You're saying?
From a physical perspective.
But so when it comes to the idea of what is unnecessary versus necessary, I think that's the much harder thing to define. We think we know what is or isn't necessary, but maybe for stubbing your toe, it might be something more complicated. Like, maybe it's not just the damaging of your toe, but maybe later on in your life, if your toe never hurt when you stubbed it, you just kicking stuff all the time. You'd never get as good at walking as you could. And then as you get older, or maybe it was a situation where you really needed to know your footing, now it might be life and death. But for you, you thought it was just something simple, like, oh, I don't want to damage myself in this moment. But maybe it had a much larger, much more important, more meaningful aspect behind it. And so what I'm realizing is that anytime that I think something or anyone thinks something in life, typically, even if we're right, that only accounts for like a piece of why something is or exists. I got a message from hello, Linda. I got a message from Keith. Let me check here real quick. I wasn't sure if he was. Oh, that's for something else, for the next event. But ultimately, there's a lot of connections that I see between what we consider to be like the meaning we find in life and suffering. So just a basic like yin yang, up, down, black, white, good. For us to have, good or positive, how do we value that? How do we value anything positively without experiencing suffering, right? Like if I gave you guys anything, I could give you guys all $1 million. But if you never could experience suffering, then how would you value it? Because you might say you value it because it's good, but then if I stole it from you, wouldn't you suffer? And if you didn't suffer, then why would you care to even hold on to it? Is that like...
There's a Shaolin monks go through this. And the name Shaolin Kung Fu, I think the word pain is embedded in there. It's in everything that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that they do in Shaolin Kung Fu is painful. Therefore, it's a painful journey. And that is why in that word, pain is attributed to everything that they do, because that's what they go through. In order to accomplish the tasks or to become their better selves, they need to go through the pain. In other words, exercise can be made very difficult, and their instructor would see them go through the pain. But instead of telling them stop, what does he tell them to do? Again, continue, do more, increase the pain, because in their evaluating the fact that they're actually in pain. As a student, you come in and you find yourself doing the exercise, then you get into a threshold of pain that you cannot take, but the instructor knows that you can actually go beyond that, so he tells you to continue. So you're made to continue. Now tears start forming in your eyes, and then he tells you no, then he tells you to continue, then you start screaming because you're in so much pain. But instead of telling you to stop, he tells you to continue, to go beyond, and you do. And at some point, these Shaolin monks become used to the pain. Their bodies adapt to the pain. Their body accepts the pain. Their body, what do you call it? Instead of running away from it, or instead of they embrace, instead of alleviating themselves from the pain, they embrace the pain, and in so doing, it becomes normalized, and it becomes a normal part of their function. And then the pain receptors now begin to understand, okay, this is going to continue, and so for somehow, some way, the body adapts, and then it becomes less painful and less painful and less painful, and you will see that their body at some point becomes almost as hard as steel, or harder than any other person's body. And thus they have now accomplished something. In other words, they can withstand pain. They can withstand suffering for a longer period of time than anybody else can. Or anyone else.
So for that there was something else that I have from a Shaolin monk that I feel like connects more, because what you're saying there is basically like you're accepting pain, or you're going through pain just so that way you can basically harden or strengthen yourself, so that way you can endure more pain. But what I was seeing is that there might be, I think that there's a lot more than just the being able to withstand it. Like this one Shaolin monk said, he said, how do you go about relaxing your hand, right? And he said, if you want to relax your hand, what you do first is you squeeze it really tight and you hold it there for a good long time. And then when you finally relax it, now it's relaxed. Now, the idea he was mentioning too is that if you want to find something that's, like spiritual or good, or however you'd want to define something you're looking for it is not the way to go usually. What's the way that's easiest, if you want to find what is spiritual or what's good or what's up or whatever, you find the opposite. So what is good, I can find the bad, and then now I know what good is. If I want to see, like I can say that this is up, but do I really know if it's up until I find where down is? And that kind of gets into like that
There's
yin yang.
also that is true. What you're talking about is also incorporated in balance.
I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. 1 second. I just want to. I don't want to leave Tom out. Tom was supposed to be here. He said that he's not able to join. Tom, I sent you a link in your in the messages on LinkedIn and one in the comments. So try that out. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Calm.
There's a way in which you balance. If you're having difficulty balancing, you put yourself in that position where you're having difficulty, and then you tense one side and you relax the other. And in so doing, you find a resonance where you can actually balance and you stay put, stay still. In other words, in that position that is difficult, that you're having difficulty. They do this in what do you call it, in the Shaolin Kung Fu temple as well. But that's also a way of saying, okay, you tense one side and the other side you relax. So yin and yang.
Yeah.
You make one side suffer while the other side is relaxed. In the body, you can manipulate, you can change, you can do this, and you'd find yourself balancing, or let's say you find balance as a result, which is the yin and yang, the balancing of the universe.
Mm-hmm. And I agree 100% with all of that you said. Only thing that comes to mind is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, it still doesn't sound like something that it doesn't sound desirable so much. It sounds like, okay, it's a necessity. It gives you these benefits or whatever. But ultimately, the way we're talking about suffering now, it still doesn't sound like something anyone wants to go and like chase after, right? Or
indeed. And look, for things that cause pain, there's always a solution. Welcome, Kimberly. I'm glad you joined. And I say that we need a woman's voice in our conversation. I'm just inviting Jay, so I'm glad you're here, people. It is. I don't think we need to endure pain. That's why I said right at the beginning, it is unnecessarily prolonging pain, discomfort.
Okay.
What if it wasn't?
Sorry, I was gonna say, what if it wasn't necessary, but it was desired? I can give you an example.
That's okay. Go on, give me an example.
Okay. On a lower end of things, right? You can think of anything that you would consider to be positive, something that you like to do, right? But if you just did that over and over and over again, like it could be, reproducing without the reproducing activity, that's pretty enjoyable. But if you just did that over and over and over again, 5 minutes in, 2 hours, an hour, eventually you get to a point where it itself becomes no longer enjoyable even in that. And then, so if you've ever had, I don't know, a scenario where you had a victory over something after having so much suffering and sacrifice, and what that felt like compared to just getting it, right? Like you could just try and accomplish something and you get it, and you're like, oh, cool, look, I got it first try. Or, you try and you get to a point where you're not even sure maybe if you can, but then all of a sudden you accomplish it. The feeling that you get, the rushes through your body, the idea of like, what can I do now? Has anyone ever experienced something like that in their life that they would or wouldn't trade?
I'm looking at Tracy's comments. I'm speechless seeing this topic. Tracy, that's why I sent you the link to join the studio. I think we'd love to hear your thoughts, right? Look, I think we grow through challenges, right? And I guess ultimately the idea of what suffering is to me is, it's our mental frame. I think it's the way we choose to look at it. The way you're saying, I like boring stuff. I'm a marketer. So we do repetition is what we do. And I said, I remember the day when I used to employ people, right? Young people. And they will come thinking, marketing is fun. We make videos. We do viral stuff. I'm like, no. We do the same thing over and over and over. That's marketing, right? You know, what you try and find out what works, right? And then, you know, my solution to most things is DMs. So my staff were always amazed when I told them, you're not going to make any videos. You're going to send DMs, hundreds, thousands every day. I'll start doing it. And day after day, you're going to send more and more DMs. We'll do events, more DMs. You know, 800 DMs per event. You know how many events I do, my friends? So 800 DMs per event. What's the job? And I say, it's repetition is repetition is repetition. If you think that's suffering, go somewhere else. You know, maybe see, but I think at the heart of the thing, the challenge, the chore, the pain, is that there's always a smarter way to lessen the pain and almost make the pain go away. You know, was it Mr. Khan talking about exercise just now? I'm thinking, again, that this is a choice we make almost, Anthony, whether we want to feel that pain or not, right? And I don't know about Shaolin monks. I'll leave that to you and Mr. Khan. But I'll tell you this. Again, there was a time when I believed the more pain, the more gain. No pain, no gain. Remember, you know all that? I really believed, and I believed it. So I would put myself through 3 hours of exercise every couple of days, right? 3 hours, painful, hurting, exhausting. You know, it took my 16-year-old son to tell me, Dad, you're just doing it all wrong. I'm like, what? What do you mean? And he's a gym bunny. He's like, Dad, you just need to do 15 minutes a day, and if that, because you know, you think that you're exercising your muscles, all you're doing is exhausting your muscles. No need. He said, no, you have to activate your muscles instead. So do 2 reps of everything and be done. And you know what? I've seen more gain from doing that than doing 3 hours. I can do my exercise literally in 15 minutes and be gone. We don't know. Again, let me give you a last one. Childbirth. Do we really need to put women through suffering for hours to in labor? No, we don't. It's something called medication. Lessen the pain. Do it quick. Cesarean section. I'm saying, right, this is how we avoid suffering. We don't need to suffer the way I think you're suggesting, Anthony, when it comes to things in life. I could be wrong, but I'll keep quiet now. Cyrus, you're going to have to speak up, Cyrus, because no one's going to give you the mic.
Yeah.
You have to speak.
I mean, I would definitely say really quick that there is a difference between unnecessary excessive suffering, but I think at the end of the day, there's still a certain amount of suffering. Like Tom said, right? Pain teaches the brain. It's like that idea. You can tell the kid 1,000 times, you know, don't touch whatever, but then they touch it and they burn and they never touch it again. Learned it extremely quickly. Now, just on that aspect of it, you think to yourself, information, learning, and growing is pretty important in life. And if you could learn something that quick that nobody else could teach you and it only came that way, maybe there's another way to do it, maybe not. But ultimately, again, when it comes to, I don't know, anything that we've ever accomplished in life, right? And you finally overcome it. Did you not feel a connection between how much pleasure you felt having how good you felt about overcoming it versus how much you suffered through it? And suffering doesn't just mean I think there's a certain type of suffering where, like, if I go to the gym and my arms are sore and I feel sore, you know, it's like that's suffering, but in my mind, I enjoy that pain because I know that pain means that I got a good workout.
If that happens to you, Anthony, please stop. You're just harming yourself. I promise you. So don't carry on.
I mean, I don't know anyone who's really gotten to a level that like made them just way above the rest, that didn't push themselves to a point where there was some amount of discomfort, where if they were like, I should stop. You know,
I want to see I want to see any build muscle mass with zero pain.
Yes,
that's what I don't think you can do that. I mean, it's like a distance runner. or when they break through, when you're doing a marathon, they break through the wall.
But here's the simple thing. Your body is just it's doing basic repairs on what it needs, right? And so if you give it a need, it'll match that need. Now, if the need that you give it is up here, right? And then, then it'll match that need eventually. But if the need you give it is just a little bit above, it's not really that much suffering, well, it's not going to give you those gains. And so the same way with the touching of the fire, how it can get you there quicker, I would say that there is levels of suffering that can definitely provide something that you can't get everywhere else. And
it's a reframe, Anthony. The word suffering, I think, is emotive. Tracy, I'm with you entirely. Suffering is a state of undergoing pain, distress, and hardship. I think we don't need to do. You can reframe it, Mike. If my aim is to grow muscles, I'm not suffering whilst I'm doing all that. I'm not suffering as I'm getting bigger, right? I'm exercising. I'm growing muscles. I think that when it becomes, like you said, Anthony, when my arms are aching, they're about to fall off, my tendons are gone, I've ripped a muscle or two, that's not growth. That is ridiculous behavior, right? That's seriously ridiculous behavior. It's unnecessary. That one.
I don't know. I've seen a lot of
argue, but go
on, Mike. Please argue.
When you're exercising, and my understanding is, you do however many reps, then you take a day break, and then so like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You're not constantly doing it to the exhaustion, right? But on that day, and usually this happens to me, like if I work out, it's actually usually for me the second day, not the day after. And that's when you feel some pain. But to me, I guess what I'm saying, and I'm going to just say this, it can be seen as a burden, but it's also a catalyst. While none of us are going to seek it out, those who do face it with courage and openness often find that it refines them. In moving through suffering, we can emerge stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. And this is one of the things I was going to try to raise. She wrote a song about this. And it's not that we seek out suffering, but if we look back, we can see those times where we went through whatever you want to call it, trials, tribulations, experiences that were painful. There are painful situations, but at the end of the day,
if I could really quick, I think before I'm going to say something and kind of quiet down for a little bit, but I think everyone kind of agrees that if you do something a certain amount of times, you kind of become accustomed to it, right? And so, right, like, so let's say you get accustomed to doing something that is, I'm not really hurt myself. I'm just doing a little bit. That's what I'm accustomed to. Versus someone who's accustomed to like going until their body can't go anymore, then now you are going to try and compete with that person, right? And then you think to yourself, oh, well, I'm going to be able, no, just the psychological aspect of it alone, the fact that they are accustomed to getting to a point that you don't even want to touch is going to set them apart.
Yes, I agree. In my world, they call it SAS. This is the Special Army Forces. Literally, they will do everything to extreme. The SAS says when we think we're exhausted, we can't do any more. We're barely 40% into our capacity to do that thing. Right. I'm saying don't compete with them. You can try and build up your tolerance, your resistance, your ability. But there's no point to killing yourself because you will just kill yourself. Because
we're all. I mean, first of all, I'm not sure if we're killing yourself. We're all going to die anyway, so I don't know what we're trying to like preserve. But then I saw this lady that's 94 years old, and she's a gymnast doing all sorts of stuff I can't physically do. So I've never seen a scenario where someone did more exercise and became like less healthy. Maybe they did something and they hurt their joints or whatever over time. No, but their heart, their muscles,
no, that's not true. That's not true. That's you can overdo everything, right?
Yes, you can. Yeah, anything to an extreme.
Now, I'm thinking, look, I will do my routine today. Tomorrow, I'll do something different. Again, it's a learning that rest, and maybe even thinking time is needed in between everything. Otherwise you risk burnout, you risk serious exhaustion, and that's when you'll be no more. If you just keep doing and trying to do yourself in, suffering is great. Suffering is not great. There's no greatness in undergoing pain, distress, and hardship. That's so different. Hopefully we'll get to the conversation I think I want to have, which is that it's a choice we make. Let's talk to our friends now. Cyrus, talk to us. You've been here. Look, me and Mike and Anthony have been here many times. We know how we work, right? We just talk. So don't wait for permission, please. I'll mute your mic if you have a thought, and just talk to us.
Thank you. First of all, may I please acknowledge my friends on the stage.
What's up, Cyrus? How you doing? Hey.
Hi. So Calm, Zara, Jay, Tom, Mike, Annie, and yourself, and Kimberly, of course. It's a pleasure to be here. I learn more when I'm listening and not when I'm talking. So that's what I was listening. I was really enjoying that. I'm not going to use the word confrontation. The contrast between what Mike was saying, what you were saying, and what Anthony was saying was quite educational for me. Thank you. So when it comes to suffering, I can see most of the talk so far has been predominantly the physical side of it. But majority of suffering in people's life, obviously life is suffering. From the moment we're born, we cause this slight inconvenience for our mums when they give birth to us. And I am being sarcastic and quite farcical when I say slight. So this great inconvenience we cause for our mothers, and not only we cause them the inconvenience of birthing, we stay in their womb for 9 months. Imagine that, right? I couldn't tolerate a kidney stone for 2 weeks, let alone a child in my stomach for 9 months. Anyway, so in my personal view and based on my experiences, obviously I can be right, can be wrong. I'm only human. So suffering happens when the outcome is not congruent with what you really want, right? So mentally speaking, so you either get something you don't want, or you're not getting something you want, right? So you want to pass your exam, a driving test on the first try. Not everyone can do it, right? So I was a legend in that because I did it after 8 times anyway. So you fail and fail and fail. That's suffering, right? So the outcome is not what you want. But what really boils down to is that we want to control the outcome. That's what suffering is. Your inability to control the outcome. The outcome happens to you anyway, but you want the outcome to be desirable. If it's bad, you want to be walking away with it. You want to keep it as distant from you as possible. If it's good, you want it in your life. You want it around you. You want it near you. That's basically the top and bottom of suffering, really. And in regarding making progress, pain is not necessarily necessary for the progress. However, nothing happens until something moves, right? So you gotta be exercising if you want to build yourself up. So if you can find a way to reduce the pain, all right, and increase your exposure to the least amount of pain and highest amount of gain, that would be quite ideal, and that's why you get a personal trainer. So to achieve that kind of balance, pain is not desirable, but it's necessary sometimes.
So for the definition we were using, it was just experience or being subject to something bad or unpleasant, or to experience physical or mental pain. And so when it comes to even the idea you were mentioning, right? Minimize the pain, maximize the gain, right? Well, imagine you do that perfectly, but now you can also increase the amount of pain that you can tolerate. And then so now the amount that you gain is even more.
In physical exercise, I agree with you.
Or no, psychological too.
No,
I'd say if you so
Yeah.
so imagine, okay, anyone who's ever gone through their whole life and they were like spoiled, they never had to experience any sort of pain, right? They kind of just got what they wanted. Now in life, where you're gonna get sick, your family's gonna people are gonna get sick and die, hurricanes, disasters, things are going to happen, right? So there's no getting out of that. Question is, almost like having dumbbells dropped on your chest, right? Would you like to practice being able to lift the dumbbell with 300 pounds, or would you like to try and avoid it, knowing one day that your mom's death is going to show up it's just going to happen? You're going to have to stand there at your father's funeral. Do you want to be able to handle more suffering so that way in that moment you can be there to support others and to be there to bring the memory of the loved ones and not just be so just overwhelmed with the suffering because you've never experienced it, because you've been minimizing it? Or would you like to understand yourself well enough that you could look at yourself and say, look, I may not necessarily even desire this next level of pain, but I know that I can handle it. I know that if I was to handle it, that I would also be able to gain something from it, not just to do it just to do it, right?
Well, Anthony, in response to that, you raised a valid point, like super valid point, and I loved it. In my view, if you practice enough to create this skill that I'm going to mention, you're going to be absolutely fine in life, right? So the ability to bounce back in the least amount of time possible, right? So let's say life knocks you down and you lose your job, as an example. How long is it going to take you before you go through those few stages of mourning and then suffering and then acceptance and then applying for another job? Some people, it takes them 5 minutes. Some people, it takes them weeks, right? Mm-hmm. So the faster you are in bouncing back, right, and recuperating, the happier and more productive you will be in life. Generally speaking, again, I am here hypothesizing. It just varies from one person to the next, right? But it's not avoiding the pain. It's not accepting the pain. It's really working on the scale, which is bouncing back and going back to the that normal state that you are in and you should be in order to make progress.
So how do you work on the skill of bouncing back without, like, if I'm going to deliberately try to work better at bouncing back, how do I do that without accepting pain, right? So for example, with cognitive dissonance, someone says something and I experience some pain, I can so simply just mock it up to it's them. That person's being mean. They're doing this. I can put that blame on themselves. I can avoid some level of suffering, but now I'm not actually practicing that bouncing back. For me to be able to, in my assumption, to be able to practice bouncing back, I have to, at the very least, be able to accept that, to take that pain, that suffering on, and then move past it. Is there any way that you know of to practice that bouncing back without the suffering?
There's two types of suffering. Yeah. Aware and unaware. Most of the suffering, I mean, some of the suffering happens when a person is unaware, right? I saw this student who came to the UK a few weeks back. I saw her on LinkedIn, and she said, I can't make my mom and dad proud because my visa is being cancelled. And you may be wondering what she had done. She hadn't done like a great crime. She had worked for over 20 hours per week. She had done actually 50, 60 hours. Okay, so then she was like, oh, it's such an insignificant thing. My visa is getting cancelled for this. And then when you check the Home Office rules and regulations, it was something that she had signed for, she had agreed to, right? So she didn't know, like actively, she didn't know that if she committed that act, her visa would be cancelled. So imagine someone who goes to a particular type of restaurant and they have nut allergies. They eat that food and they'll find themselves in a whole lot of trouble. They didn't know. So some of the suffering is because of the things that we don't know. So my response to your question is by studying, by reading, because leaders are readers, right? So if you want to lead in life, you have to be do it. You have to do a lot of reading and study a lot. So preparing yourself starts with reading up on it, and then it's not always about reading, because I know about a lot of readers who actually are not where they're supposed to be, right? So
yeah, you still have to experience it, otherwise it's just text,
practice. So not knowing is not good enough excuse for failing in life, but that causes suffering sometimes.
Okay, and to add to that, you have to you and to what you're saying, you do need to go through some suffering and some pain, and when you do go through the pain, as you go through it multiple times, because you're going to be applying for multiple jobs over and over again, and you're going to be turned down over and over again, and that you're going to be going through that pain over and over and over again. But as you go through that pain, you'll find that the amount of pain that you attribute to yourself becomes less and less and less, because you've experienced it. So somehow you're able to numb yourself from being turned down, and that's how you gain.
I can't put my hand up, Anthony. If we stick with Michael's point, I think mastery is the key. I'm more thinking we have to live in an alignment. So when you live in an alignment,
yes.
when what you do goes with what you want and what what's in your soul, it's not suffering. You're just doing what comes naturally almost. I think it also ties in what Sarah was saying. Awareness, self-awareness is key in all of this. If you know what you really want, and you know that you are doing good, the journey is the journey. I see in the comments, David, I see you, Lily, I see you, right?
I want to say part of, I think, what I'm trying to come across is a lot of everyone here is at a certain level of understanding for themselves that is much further above a lot of people than like the majority of the people who need to understand this. And so when you start to mention stuff like trying to find the balance, I'll give you an example. Someone is overweight and they injured their knee, and so now because their knee hurts, they're more likely to gain more weight, which is going to hurt their knee more. When they go to stand up, it hurts, right? When they go to walk distances, it hurts. So they can choose to avoid that pain, put on more weight, hurt their knee more, shorten their life. They can choose to push through that pain, and whatever happens to their knee, they start to lose weight. All of a sudden, they're now being a little more healthy. And when it comes to the awareness aspect of it, self-awareness, how can you be self-aware unless you choose to accept and dig into that pain? It's so easy when I experience something negative to just make it your fault, to blame it on you, to try to hurt you, and then never accept it. If I tell
responsibility is what we're all responsible for what happens to us, right? I could argue this all day. I think now we're going where I want to go, right? Let's come back to the pain thing, to the knee pain, right? We know better. We know better, my friends. I'm not overweight because I don't exercise. I'm overweight because I eat too much. Or maybe some other. Go on, Kim. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in here. Anthony, you're raising some really great points here, and I think it is important. So thanks so much for curating this space to have this conversation, because oftentimes, what you're doing is you're creating a space so we can raise awareness around these topics. They're very important. And what was really coming up for me when you use the example of being a child, maybe you've been given everything that you wanted, maybe not necessarily monetarily, but your emotional comfort was never challenged. In that respect, someone was always doing something for you. And so you didn't have the opportunity to build those skills. For me, it's it's either you're going to experience the discomfort on the front end, or you're going to experience it on the back end. It's okay wherever you do experience it along the continuum. It matters not. What matters is that you don't sit in victim consciousness, and you do take the steps, you know, because you also said something about, you know, someone, you gave a different example, and it just made me think, you know, we don't have to swallow the medicine all at once. We don't have to do that. We can just take a teaspoon at a time, right?
Yes.
But there are so many, and we're seeing examples of this all over. There's so many people that have not yet challenged themselves personally. There may be something that is still operating in the background, but your question is why we suffer. And so there's so many different ways, and I think a lot of them have already been discussed. We talked about desire and attachment. And when we look at desire and attachment, we're looking at the root system, right? We're looking at the root system, because when we're not self-aware, we're not consciously choosing it, right? We're ignorant, if you will. So we're not consciously choosing it. But then there's also this idea that suffering can also be a path to meaning, right? It can
Adversity,
also, yeah, we choose it, right? So how do we choose it? We might run a marathon, raising our children, right? You know, having for women, having the children, pushing them out, you know, watching sad films. Women often do this. And sometimes it's like, why would you do that? Well, it's actually, people don't realize, but those tears, they're cleansing, right? There's energy and vibration in those drops. And it's like a cleansing of the soul. We don't want the pain, if you will, if we label it as pain, we don't want it living in our bodies, because you talked about the physical manifestations of that. So going to your example about the marathon runner, or not the marathon runner, you said someone was overweight and had knee pain. You used that example. So we don't know all the, you know, details of that, but if we take it at face value, that person made a decision, right, for themselves, right, for whatever reason, and then the pain of not making that decision manifested physically. I've seen it with my own eyes. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens one decision at a time.
It's that slow boil. It's that warming water. But the part that you were mentioning, where you don't have to take the medicine all at once, but you do have to take it. There are so many people who don't understand the benefit of taking the medicine at all, and the taste of it, they just spit it out of their mouth. So if you were to say something to me, right, like, let's say I'm like sitting here and I'm 500 pounds, and you're like, hey, you're overweight, you're fat, or whatever, and it's causing problems. I'm just like upset at you that why would you say that to me? Like, because you made me, because all that I know is you said something that made me feel bad, right? But it was the truth. Unfortunately, if I'm not willing to accept that, which requires me to face suffering again, it's a lot easier for me to just go, you know, it wasn't me that was the problem. That person was a piece of shit. They did all this stuff, and if they hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have acted the way I acted. It's their fault. Then you can go to sleep at night. It's a lot easier than thinking to yourself, oh man, I didn't handle that appropriately. Matter of fact, it might even be worse. It might be something like you've been raising your kids for years, and there's some aspect of something where you knew you could have done better, maybe. But again, you're trying to find that balance in the suffering, right? And so it's your kids, and you could suffer more for them. Obviously, you don't want to suffer so much that you destroy yourself, but Imagine there's this line where it's like, you know what, I'm just tired right now. I'm not going to put in that little bit of extra effort that I could put in that would make a difference for them. And for me, it would just be a little bit more.
I just want to just push into that for a minute and use the example of the 500 pounds. First of all, I would never, don't care if I didn't know the person, if they were my best friend, I would never in a million years think that it was my place to tell them you're fat. First of all, I think what we're not looking at here is that person is suffering. They're choosing to suffer. It might be a million reasons why that's happening because they're not making a decision. But not one of us, right? Because there's something called kindness. We would never tell someone, another human being, that they were fat, right? It's not our job.
But so if I could, I would say, like, I think for one, the word fat itself has like a certain amount of emotional context to it. It's just anything that relates to them being maybe overweight. So maybe they're coming over and they're getting ready to like sit on some furniture, and it's like, you can't sit on that furniture because you're going to damage it, right? Now I could say nothing, let them sit on it, damage it, and then now they're embarrassed physically. Or I could just I could say that, and now I'm actually maybe I'm giving them some amount of negative feelings in this moment, but I'm sparing them for more. It could be something even more than that. Well,
because it's not our role. So using that example of somebody coming over, give them an alternative place to sit.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, for you to do that, you have to make it clear that you're giving them the alternative because of their weight that they're not paying attention
absolutely
to.
Not.
Yeah. Well, so I'm saying,
I agree. You don't need to be mean.
No. So I'm not trying to say mean, but like, imagine they're going to just use this chair, right? Then I come over and be like, hey, use this chair instead. I'm not saying the word that they're overweight, but I'm implying, I'm just basically not being assertive. We all know why I came over to you with this extra chair, but for me to not say the words because I'm afraid of how the words are going to impact you, but in reality, it still hits you the same way. It's just how you apply meaning to those words. I could give you one example, right? Where let's say I did say something that did cause them negative
Anthony,
feelings.
One question I gotta ask you is, in so doing, you also want to take this into consideration. Aren't they making you suffer by making you having to go through this and find an alternative way to actually communicate with them instead of a way that is just relevant and that brings the issue to the point? Aren't you made to suffer, to go through suffering, to do that?
Well, I love them, right? And
So
I'm saying I love this person with everything in my soul, right? And what I see is that this person might have, if they're lucky, they might have 10 more years to live because that's just where they are. Now, I can try to bring that to them in any and every sort of way where I'm being very polite and nice about it. And they, again, the feelings that they have, these negative feelings are very intense. And so I'm trying to give them this low level, like, hey, just trying to make it seem like it's important. But at the end of the day, the negative feeling, that hump, that medicine that they have to take is so much more sour than any of me being nice. That what if I told them something like, I'm not saying that I would do this because you have to read a scenario, but what if you literally gave them some sort of an ultimatum where it's like, look, when you are here at my place, you won't be able to. I love you because I love you, right? And because I love you, I'm going to accept the fact that this is going to hurt your feelings, and I don't want to feel this way. But if I can say something that might be, even if it's painful enough to get you to take it seriously, and then you act differently, and it changes your life, then that's worth. I think
I'll let someone else speak after this, but for me, if we're looking at how we can show up in love, and we're using that example of someone struggling with weight loss, and we look at the reasons why, weight, carrying too much weight, and we look at the reasons why people often do that. We don't always know what's going on inside someone's hearts or in their lives that caused them to get to that point. And so, really, honestly, we're only responsible in this lifetime for ourselves and for how we show up and how we are in the world. And I get it, Anthony. In this example,
Yeah.
I have certain situations in my life where it is very difficult to see someone choose, make choices that that it could be better for them, but it's
So
not.
if it
You
was your
need
kid,
to know.
but if it was your kid, would you treat them differently, or would you still be like, hey, just let them do whatever? Like, is it different when it's your kid versus someone that's like a friend that you love?
It's not let them do whatever, Anthony. Look, parents have overweight kids, right? And we can't just hammer them to death by saying, "Look, you're overweight, you're fat."
Oh yeah, that's not ideal.
Saying that-
Look,
that's
I'll give another example, right? Okay, totally different off the weight thing. I mentioned this before,
And
where
then let's
the
go
girl.
to
So
Tom.
it still continues the thing, but really quick for Kimberly, right? So the girl I was with, she was expressing some negative feelings that she had toward her sister, right? She was upset about whatever. Now she wanted to express these feelings to me so she could vent, so I could hear her, and then I could, comfort or reinforce her, right? But instead of giving her what she wanted, which would have been the kind thing to do, I tried to do the opposite, where I tried to remove everything that she was trying to basically vent or put onto her sister. Not even her sister, it's actually her friend that she calls a sister, because I recognized that in this moment, I could very easily make her feel better in this moment by reinforcing the negative beliefs that she has about someone else. So now she's taking this energy, so she's pushing away someone that she loves by assigning this to them, when in reality, if it's her, because it's always some part of you, right? It's her. And if she accepts that, if I can at least not feed into that, then I'm not adding damage to a relationship that is the most important relationship in her life. So in that moment, it wasn't the nice thing to do. It wasn't, it was harsh, right? It was hard. And ultimately, when you say we don't know what they've been through, no one knows what anyone's been through, but we all know that we're going to die. And honestly, like, again, if I love someone, I only care about what they've been through so much as I can utilize that to help better them, because I care about them, right? And so if I'm going to look at their past trauma and go like, they had so much trauma in their life, I'm just going to let them just suffer more, all right? Or I'm going to be like, look, you suffered a lot, but let's just you have to push past it. A big difference, though, tends to be with the way women on average tend to feel about this versus men, just because of the way, when it comes to more masculine oriented minds, which tends to be more men, then when it comes to those things of suffering, it allows you to actually find reasons sometimes to push forward. Have you ever heard of someone who said, tell me that I can't do it, and that was what drove me to do it? Everyone that said I couldn't do it, it was that wanting to push back against that drove them to become more and to be better. But if you would have given them the nice, easy way out, they would have never accomplished any of that, and they wouldn't have had the pride. Can you think of anything that you guys are prideful for in your life that you thought to yourself, I suffered a lot to get to that, and I wouldn't trade it for anything?
Yes. Empathy.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring that up only because you mentioned, you can't know what someone else has suffered. And that's true in the exact sense. But trauma, like, I could share the trauma that I went through. And if it's similar, it's never going to be the same. But it brings weight to my, yes, we all have agency. Yes, we all have to do what we have to do in our lives, but I think we can come alongside someone, as Kimberly was saying, and show up with empathy. And if that empathy is born from suffering, I think it brings a lot more weight. So if I'm coming along and giving you sort of unsolicited advice that I don't really know, about whatever you've gone through. I haven't been through anything similar. I haven't really suffered, back to your point, Anthony. Maybe I just got lucky and haven't gone through much suffering in my life, versus someone that has. I just think it's a lot more powerful and a lot more useful to that person that is in the midst of that. And the other thing, which is what I wrote about in the song, is to get past that. Then you can look, yeah, I went through the shit, but I've come out the other side. And I mean, I love you guys, and I love back and forth, but I think, first of all, I think suffering is a part of life. And I think you need it for growth. And I think I'm grateful. This is going to sound very odd, but I'm grateful for the suffering that I've been through, that I can redirect into empathy. Thank you for this evening.
Yeah. Hey,
if I could ask a question with that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, if you want to ask the question, that's fine. I'll wait.
Seems like there's a hot mic. It's you and Tom. So your mic is both on. Can one of you? So Jay, you're talking. So otherwise, let's let Tom talk. One's got to talk.
Yeah, Tom then Jay.
Tom, go for it, my friend.
Okay. No, I was just going to add a couple of points. I mean, I really, really appreciate what Mike had just to say, and particularly some of Kimberly's points. If someone's really, really ill and they're just spent, whether they have the will or not to press forward is reasonable because they're spent. But I find in many, many cases that people are suffering because it's easier than it is to choose to leap forward to a new place. I speak to groups on resilience and renewal. And Anthony knows I've been through some pretty extraordinary crises, at least two. And it's made me who I am today, which is very different than I was before each of those crises. And we have a remarkable ability to take all of our life lessons and put them over here in this little bucket called resilience equity. It's the things that we can draw on. It's this rich, rich bucket that no one else has it the same. Every one of us has a different set of experiences that make us strong, or that we can turn to in a crisis to go forward. There was a woman who stepped up at the end of a talk that I gave, who said she's been suffering from depression and all she wants to do is to get back to being her good old self. And I mentioned, that I complimented her on her bravery for standing up in front of 100 people to say that. But then I said, but listen to yourself. You just said back and old. And while you have every right, just as anybody does, to take the blow, whatever the blow is, right? Take the blow. But consider for just a second if you thought there might be something special waiting around the corner for you if you just peeked, instead of wanting to go back to your comfort zone. So every crisis, every pain, every physical ailment we get in an athletic event, no matter what it is, it's you should take the blow, but then you choose, you mentally and emotionally choose to get up and get back in the game. So, pain is an opportunity to move forward.
Yeah, I agree. And
we have to, Anthony, we also have to consider people's capacity. Sometimes people have a lower capacity based on their life experiences. You mentioned 100%. The scenario of maybe not necessarily having the opportunity to practice the skill. If they don't have the practice, the ability when they're a young person to practice a skill, we can almost guess that later in life, right? Later in life, their capacity
it's gonna be less.
Is only going to be so much. It doesn't mean they can't grow.
No. Of course. Oh, yeah.
That we have to be mindful. And I see that Tom is here, and he is having me reconnect with my half sister who struggled with addiction. I would never dream of, I mean, she's no longer with us right now. She passed away from end-stage liver disease.
Yeah.
Now, I would have never said to her along that journey, and she suffered. She suffered. Talk about suffering. She suffered some unimaginable thing or unimaginable things. But in that instance, I would have never dreamed to say, hey, you know what? You could do better in your life. You could do better in your life. You know what? You don't need to live on the street. You don't need to live on the street. You should be in a house. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. But that really, if someone does not have a strong toolkit and they only have so many different coping mechanisms, we could be doing more damage to someone.
Yeah.
No, so
yeah, 100%. Don't ever.
Are losing their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I have a son who was a 12-year addict, and he did everything, absolutely everything, and he destroyed 3 cars and hurt somebody, and we were sued, and that hurt us financially as well as a young parents at the time. And then I also survived the downfall of the South World Trade Tower, and then I also had a double brain aneurysm surgery. So each of those changed my life and my whole perspective. And yet, to your point, Kimberly, yours is never more dramatic or bigger or better or more, painful than the second person sitting in the room, because it's equally as powerful and effective on them. So you're right. Everyone has a different threshold.
Yeah. I mentioned this when I mentioned something to Annie where I was saying, yes, first of all, Kimberly, I couldn't agree with you more. And a matter of fact, like that threshold and being able to recognize where it is, as far as like not pushing past it, probably nothing more important than not pushing past that line. For me, I guess I'm more thinking about, I guess from my perspective, I'm thinking about the opposite, where there's a lot of specifically more younger men who are doing the opposite. They have the opposite problem where, maybe they're experiencing suffering level here, but in reality, they would be very comfortable experiencing suffering up here. And if they experience suffering up there, the person that they would be someone that they would be far more like proud of. They would be like, every aspect of what they are desiring comes from that suffering, but they don't know because they're trying to compare themselves to this group where it's just, you got to be nice and everyone needs to be treated the same way. And it's not the case. So for the woman, right? Like not just women, it's the person themselves specifically. But in my scenario, right, there's the 13-year-old son for the girl I'm with. And for her, I would never intentionally use that say she's fat, because I know that that's going to just, right. But for her son, like he's not even as big as mom, but I'll look at him and I'll be a lot more direct with him, specifically where it's like, we were talking to him about what does he probably want to do with his life and stuff. Right. He's like, I want to kind of get into sports. Right. And I told him, I was like, yeah, you can do it, but it's going to be hard. You're going to have to take it seriously and you can't mess around. Right. So now for him, I'll go to him probably hopefully soon and tell him like, look, based on what I see, you're not going to make it. Right. And that's a hard thing for him to hear. So hear me out. Hear me out. I'm going to tell him that the way he's going, he doesn't stand a chance. I'm not saying that he can't do it. No, and here's the reason. No, here's the reason why. He, first of all, he understands that I don't ever do anything just to hurt him. He understands that everything I say is literally because I'm just trying to help him. So he's very receptive to these things. And so in that scenario, right, what can I tell him after I tell him that? It's like, look, I told you afterward that you would have to make a schedule. You would have to be exercising, counting calories. You have to be doing all these things. Yeah. Since then, I have seen you multiple times getting multiple meals, eating food, sitting down, just doing nothing. You're shorter than me and you weigh more than me. And you're only 13 years old. So hear me out, right? So what I'm saying is, in this scenario, because I have an understanding of where his threshold is, I can help him to reset where he can either make a decision to to be comfortable with that, right? I'm not saying that he can't, like, it's okay if he wants to do that, but all I'm saying is that maybe if this is the lifestyle that you are comfortable with living, you should understand the reality.
Anthony, you are too.
Go ahead.
You are too focused on. What you're gonna tell him, not how you're gonna say it. Right. Sometimes
yes, because I have to. That's all. That's the moment.
1 minute.
That's the
1 minute manager.
Yeah.
I think that 1 minute manager. I think it's by Spencer Johnson. That's gonna save your backside when it comes to dealing with such occasions. So
I agree. How I say it is always going to be of the moment.
And also,
I don't know when I'm going to say it. I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
You also need to sandwich. No, just a second. Just a second, Annie. Sandwich it between. No, wait. Sandwich it between what he does best and the outcome you want him to achieve.
That's actually
then
really good advice.
Put it in between. Put it in between those two things. Okay, so that's sandwiching the problem.
Tom, can I say quick?
Can I give you a
Go ahead. Let me say this quick. I said Lillian's comment: empathy that is born from pain carries different weight. Lillian, I agree with you, but how about empathy that's born of love? That's a whole different.
But what is love without suffering?
Right, Anthony. When I said let me speak quick, who's suffering? You or him? You see, now you seem to think that you have the answer. I don't think you have. I've got 3 kids.
No, so I'll give you an example that I think will really correct it. Right, there was a time where we were at the Springs, right, and he was wearing a shirt. Now I know why he's wearing the shirt. He's wearing the shirt because he's a little overweight and he's a little uncomfortable, right? Now, while we were there at the Springs, I asked him why he's wearing the shirt, knowing that it's going to bring up this kind of feeling that's like, right? It's a little bit of pressure. Now, his mom kind of got upset. No, so just hear me out, because this had a very good and immediate response, right? At first, he kind of was avoiding the whole thing. Then eventually, when I was breaking it down to his mom, I said, look, it's okay if he's overweight, right? What matters is that he's comfortable and is accepting of it. So the problem is, right, if he would have told me like, oh yeah, man, I'm overweight or whatever, so I just don't like the way I look, so I'm wearing a shirt, I'd be like, that's great, right? Like, as long as you can look down and be like, that's who and what I am and be happy with it. Now, if you want to try and like just pretend it's not this case, now that's where you're going to get more suffering that's not going to end, because he has 2 options right now. He can learn to accept himself, or he can say, hey, I'm not happy with this, and make the change, and it'll be better and easier at this age. And I gave him a great example, and I was saying, I think I gave it to his mom, but it made it back to him. And I was saying, look, if he's too uncomfortable with explaining to me at the Spring why he's wearing a shirt at 13, soon he's going to be trying to meet, he's already got a girlfriend. Eventually he's going to have his first time, right? How comfortable is he going to be? Like, it's just, if you're overweight, be comfortable being overweight, but you're not going to get that comfort unless you've had to experience something. And once he realized that connection, he was walking around the Dollar General store with a shirt off, and I had to tell him to put a shirt on.
Let me give you some examples.
But you see, but I'm saying, did you know? Okay, so
I see what you're saying. I think
in that scenario, did you not see how the very next day, not only was he not wearing a shirt?
No.
So I'm saying in that.
I'll tell you why. Let me tell you why.
So did you hear? I'm saying like the action though, right? After that happened, he went from not only taking his shirt off, but I had to eventually tell him when we were in a store that he should be wearing a shirt. He actively took action right away. Why? Because it mattered to him. He felt something in his chest, and he's like, "Oh man,
there's different ways of doing this." The question is not about you or your son. The question is about you. Like I said earlier, who's suffering? You're suffering. He's not suffering. Here's why I say that. Listen, hear me out. And then I said that we can go to Jay, right? Sarah says rightly, the way to hell is paved with good intentions. Mm-hmm. So it's not about the other person; it's about us, really. I mean, we think we're doing something good when we're not. Rarely is life so concrete. And Mike says sharing empathy correctly is always done with love. I totally agree. Yes. Look, I'll give you this as an example. Now, my son was the opposite of your son, right? I've got 3 kids.
Does anything I say make it seem like I didn't love that wasn't like love or empathy? Because I don't care. I'm just trying to think. I'm thinking to myself about his scenario. I'm like, I know what it was like to be a 13-year-old kid.
Leave your scenario to him. Leave your scenario to him. Do what good parents would do.
So
just walk beside him. That's what I'll say to you. You know, look, I remember 3 years
But
ago, my son's
not
16.
only, I'm sorry, not only did it work, but his connection to me grew stronger after that, where he would look to me more for advice because he knew that I'm not trying to bullshit him. I'm just trying to help him. And I told him multiple times, I said, look, you know, I told him one time, I said, hey man, like, you know, I kind of put you on the spot and I know that that's not comfortable, but the reason why I do that is because I recognize that you're not going to get better at doing that just by not doing it. I said, right here, when you're with people who care about you, with the family and friends, to be put on the spot where everyone loves you, like that's the easiest way. The alternative is that you have no experience with it. And when you're my age or older and your job is on the line, you're trying to maintain your wife or whatever, your kids, now you're on the spot and you're trying to figure that out. And when he heard me say that, he understood, like, okay, yeah, Anthony might be a little harsh, but that harshness comes with,
and
it's the same way with the kid
that
burning their hand.
might work.
Okay.
Or
That might work for that occasion. Let me say
exactly.
this.
Everything is everything is situational.
Right.
Mhm.
Look, so my son was 3 years ago. I remember my son being a skinny 13-year-old, right? And let's do push-ups, press-ups, call it what you like, right? He couldn't. It literally, his body was literally was like jelly. I'm like, oh wow, keep trying, keep trying. You know, every time he did, I applauded, right? You know, if he could do 2, I applauded. 3 years later, this boy he's a muscle kid. This is a gym bunny, right? It's not a problem to make him a gym bunny. All I can do is just walk beside him and say, yeah, I encourage you all the way. Not have a thought that he's skinny or he's too bony or he's not trying hard enough.
So you guys missed the point because of the emotions that are attached to it. What I was trying to say clearly is that him being overweight, I don't care about like that. And I don't care if he doesn't care. What I want for him to do is to be able to accept himself. To accept himself, he has to be able to acknowledge the truth. So right now, if you are overweight, and I made an example that I have this friend that is like 450 pounds or whatever, but when it comes to like levels of confidence, when we're all out, like I'll be out at the store and we're just getting some stuff, we're hanging out, he's talking and hitting on like every girl that's there, and he's getting numbers, and because he's confident with himself. He knows that he's big, but he's not letting that affect him. This kid is out there with, he's trying to. Is he
happier? Is he happier, Anthony?
He is. That's
right.
What I said.
I'm not sure he is. No, look, I don't even know your friend. I'm saying it's not one way to be. It's not one way. There's many ways to be, and we can't. Kimberly said it earlier. It's little choices we make every day, right? But we can't pretend we know someone else is suffering, and I fear half the time we're dealing with our suffering, or not dealing with our suffering, as the case may be.
Let me simplify. If we could just go back, right? He himself is wearing his shirt in public, and I just ask him why he's wearing it, right? So I'm not assuming that I know what his suffering is, but all that I do know in life is that if you accept yourself for who you are, you'll be happier than if you can't accept yourself for who you are. So I'll give you an example right here, right? I'll show you my chest. Right? I have a concave chest. I don't know if you can see that. Like my chest grows, like it caves inward, right? So I might not have been overweight, but I know what it was like when I was going out to the beach with friends, right? And I'm wearing this tank top and I look good in the tank top, but then they're like, oh, let's go to the water. And then I would try to like take it off and kind of get in the water, and I kind of try and hide there. And, and then when we were getting back out, I try and hide it again. And then I got to a point where I accepted who I am and how much better I feel. I'm literally showing you my chest online just to make my point, because I can now, because I accepted that. But I couldn't have accepted it if I was just like avoiding the whole topic. So again, I don't care if he's fat, ripped, if he's in sports or whatever. What I care is that he's not in denial about his current circumstances, and that he doesn't deny what he wants. If he wants to be, first of all, everybody wants to be you want to be happier with yourself, right? You want to be able to think to yourself, like, I'm more comfortable with myself than left, right? Like everybody wants to be comfortable with who they are, not uncomfortable, right? I think I can make that assumption.
Not true.
So people want to be uncomfortable with themselves. They want like
they're happy with themselves however they are. Whether they tell you or not.
Yeah, that was the example. But that's the example I made with my friend that's like 450 pounds. Again, he's out there talking to women. Like the way he'll just walk up to just anyone and talk to them. even for me, like I kind of have to get myself in like a headspace, and I'm like, he is showing way more confidence than I ever display just naturally. Why? Because he's comfortable with himself. He's more comfortable with himself than I am with myself. And again, he's like 5'2", like 450 pounds. So I don't care. It's not about the weight. It's about you being comfortable with who you are, which you can't do if you can't accept it. You have to at least be able to look and think to yourself, like, you know, there's these unpleasant things. How do you define it?
I'll leave the question
let me give one last example here.
Yeah.
So there's a little episode in this movie called Spanglish. Okay. And the mother goes out. She already has kind of, maybe not necessarily a close relationship with her daughter. Her daughter kind of knows that she's not really accepting of her, although she's not verbally saying it to her. And she comes home one day and she's got a brown bag in her hand. And she goes, surprise, surprise, I went shopping. I went shopping for you. And she's like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Now she's around 13 at the time. So she's like, what did I do? I can't believe this. She was so excited. So she started digging into the bag and she starts pulling out the clothes. Of course, she wants to try them on. She puts the clothes on and realizes and says to her mom, Mom, these don't fit me. Oh, and then she looks in the tag and she goes, you know, I'm not a size 8. She's like, I know, honey, you're not a size 8, but I know you really would look good if you were a size 8. So the message there was her mother was doing what she thought, okay, based on her level of awareness, what was good for her daughter. Okay. Yes. It was hurtful. It chipped away at the daughter's self-concept. Our children may receive what we say to them, but it chips away.
Yep.
Okay. But
in their social network, sometimes it's better if their friend might say something that impacts them. Maybe they'll experience something.
So you're just hoping that it falls into their lap from some other circumstance that's like easier, that you don't have to. So with that example, I can definitely see that scenario. Again, she had her personal desires, what she wanted for her daughter. She's like, I think that you would be better. Again, I don't give a shit what he looks like. I don't care if he wears a shirt or not. What I care about is that he is okay with who he is, no matter who or what he is. But again, he can't do that if he doesn't acknowledge it, right? If he's there doing so, like if he's there again and he's wearing the shirt and I just simply ask a question like, hey, why are you wearing a shirt? Like a random kid asked me, why does your chest look like that? If he can't look at me and be like, oh yeah, man, I just think I look better with a shirt on because that's where my belly looks, right? Then I'd be like, yeah, man, like, let's go. Let's just jump. Like I would bring him the shirt. I would give him whatever he wants to do because he actually is aware of it. But now imagine where he wants one thing, but he's not paying attention to certain aspects because everybody's just pretending that it's not like a real problem, right? So again, if somebody says that, hey, look, for my life, I think my life would be better if I was doing this hard, rigorous thing. I'd be in sports. Again, that wasn't my desire. That's your desire. Now I'm going to be as honest with you as I can. And I'm going to tell you that, look, you can do it. I believe in you, but it's going to be hard. Don't think it's going to be easy. Don't think that you can just get that and just, it's going to fall into your lap. You want it. If you want it, you can have it, but only if you're willing to work hard at it. Like Nas said, right? If you want to be the president of the United States, or you want to own a company, you want to do certain high level things, it's going to come with whatever that comes with. It wasn't me that cared about it, but I know he has a girlfriend. And I also could see that he was wearing a shirt out in public and didn't feel comfortable just telling me. And I was asking confident, like, hey, why are you wearing a shirt? Right. And when it clicked in his mind, because I didn't do it in a way where like I was trying to force my ideas onto him, I spent enough time with him that I could tell what he wanted and the discrepancy between what he was doing and how he was behaving, because nobody else wanted to have to deal with that uncomfortable truth. It's like, hey, Annie, if I told you, if I told any of you something like, hey, man, I want to get off, I want to kick drugs or whatever. I want to get off these drugs. And so what am I going to do? Like, I just go over here and I just start taking the drugs and I start popping it. And you're like, hey, Anthony, I know you said you wanted to, but like, why did you just take it there? You don't ever question, you don't ever push it. Then you're just allowing me to live a delusional existence. Is that not the case? I hope I didn't push, I'm terrible with names, her away. But again, so there's a little 3 or 4 year old girl that's also part of this whole group. And if you see the way that I'm with her, it's a lot different, because again, you can look at a scenario and you should again realize that some people can handle different levels of suffering, of pain. And depending on what they can handle is, I think, what you should give them. Because to give someone anything less than what they're capable of is to let them undershoot on life, to go into life and to think to yourself like, I'm not going to try my hardest. I'm not going to see what I'm capable of. Why? Because why would I? Like, no, like, you are capable of X. And if you want X, then I'm going to help you get to X. But if you're capable of this and you want this, below that, then cool. Then that's all that matters, is being able to accept it. But how can you accept it if, again, you're unwilling to even get past the emotional response that we all experienced here when it came to all of the responses that you gave me, right? Because again, the way that I treated him, I don't know any other kid that I would say that to, because I didn't have that experience with them and I don't know what they could handle. But with him and I've had these kind of talks with him. I know that our relationship is a certain level. And again, I know what impacted him. And I don't know what was more, how could it be more successful to literally be in a store the next day? It wasn't just that he took his shirt off. It was that we were literally walking through a store and I had to tell him, hey man, you're supposed to wear a shirt in here. It fixed his action that quick. Is there anything that you guys can think of that you say, yeah?
It might have fixed his action himself without your input. Has that ever crossed your mind?
But no, so I'm saying, what made him do it? Out of just just after I gave
you never know. You never know. My point. So, let's talk to Jay. So Jay's been there all the time.
Okay, so wait. I know that he wants to be comfortable around a female. I know that he's a kid. He's a boy. He wants to be active with a woman, right? I know these things. You can't. It's not like you want to tell me that he doesn't. He's got a girlfriend, and he goes into the bathroom and I know that he wants to be active with this girl, right? I also know that when you're going to be active, you need to be comfortable with yourself, because if you're not comfortable with yourself, then how are you going to be able to sitting there just like worried about what you look like?
Anthony, I'll come back to you in 20 years' time. Hopefully we'll still be friends.
No,
But you said something else. You said the total opposite. You'd be like, Annie, I didn't get it, then I get it now. You really think.
Okay, so
I don't know.
But did it not have success?
No. Look,
was that not a success? How is that not a success?
Short term.
I say to you, who's suffering here?
No, that's what I'm saying. Neither of us are suffering.
No,
he was walking around confident.
I will say you're suffering.
Me?
Yes.
Right now my suffering is that I think I have something that's in my mind that I'm not articulating in a way that's clicking with you guys, because again, somebody else wants something. I showed them a path to get it. And imagine I showed you that what you want, you can get it one of two ways, right? You can take the fast, difficult, whatever route. You can take any route you want to. And imagine he decided that he wanted to take the fast route. He wants to get $1 million tomorrow. You could do it, but you have to go through that to get it, or find another way. But all I'm saying is if he wanted this, I could be nice, or I could try to like play around the subject. And ultimately, when he's my age or older or younger or whatever, and he's trying to now accomplish this difficult thing, he doesn't understand that it was difficult. He was just watching some stuff on TV. He thought it was easy. He could just do whatever he wants. But no, in his mind, he has this vision of himself in the future of who he could be. And I believe that he could be that person. But he's not going to fall into that.
So let's talk to Jay and Zara. I'm not saying you're wrong, Anthony. So let's talk to Jay and Zara. That way, we'll move the conversation forward. Jay, the mic is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Annie. So I just wanted to kind of chime in about all the things. First of all, Anthony, I understand you, man. I mean, if you have that type of relationship, what works for you works for you.
Right.
And I think that's pragmatic. But I think for us hearing it on this, and for some of us, it rubs us the wrong way. And you know this because you understand that there's an emotional tie to it. And so you're aware, and that's okay. For me, for other people may not accept that, but that's not what I wanted to discuss. So there's so many things here to unpack, and I've got at least 4 different topics that I wanted to tackle. And if you look at it from this way, your title is not a question, and I recognize that. Why we suffer, it's a statement, and I think that was intentional on your part. And let me look at it from this perspective, right? I'll start with the very social aspect of my thoughts. Did anybody in here watch the movie The Matrix?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And so the very first movie explains that the Matrix failed, right? I think it's the first movie or the second movie. But there's an explanation about why the initial iteration of the Matrix failed. It failed because people wanted to wake up from this utopia. It failed because it's innate in our DNA to feel pain and suffering. That was the premise of the movie. And so to unpack that, right, from just a scientific point of view, right, it's law of physics, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So how do we know love? How do we know happiness? How do we know joy unless we know suffering? We know trauma. We won't unless we experience the opposite. We'll be able to understand what it feels like to have that joy, to have that love, right? So, and when Mike was talking earlier, I was thinking about my specific pain and suffering. Why I thought about this in the first place, man. If an insurance company knew all the trauma I've been through, I would not be insurable. Seriously, seriously, they would. Man, I've been through things outside of my control that allowed me to experience pain and suffering outside myself, right? And so, like an 8.1 earthquake, a 2 category 5 super typhoons, a tornado, twice, right? I'm not even joking. These are the things I've really experienced in my life. And so, but to experience that, to understand what it feels like to own a home and not lose it, to have a safe place to come home to, period. I would not know what that really feels like and really enjoy it if I didn't know the opposite. And so that's the scientific part of it, right? If you just realize that it's part of the human condition because we're human beings. We are at the top of the food chain, literally.
Yeah,
right.
I think I can even make it a little simpler. Where, well, in life, right? We have the ability to make choices, decisions, right? And so now imagine you had just at any point in time you had 2 choices, but depending on it doesn't matter which one you chose, because if you chose this one versus that one, there was no relative suffering, right? If you chose the right one, it'd be great. But if you chose the wrong one, it wouldn't be good. But if it didn't matter which one you chose, then why would the choice even matter? And if the choice didn't matter, then what is your freedom or ability to make decisions matter? Why do you care to make a decision if the outcome is irrelevant? When it comes to, again, the level of suffering, and again, I can see how this one would rub the wrong way, which is kind of intentional, is to understand that everyone has their different levels. For example, David Goggins, right? Every single time I hear him on YouTube or something, he makes me feel like I'm a bitch. I hate and I love him because every single time I hear his voice, it's just like, God damn it. Like I'm not even anywhere near that level. I know I could be better, but I know that that's just him, right? David Goggins is the guy who went through Bud's training for the Navy SEALs like 3 times or something like that. He ran a marathon on like broken shins. He ended up like shitting himself, pissed himself, still kept running the thing. He pushed himself to levels and places that most people, like basically anyone else, just would never do. But for him, that was that was his thing. That's what he's most proud of. What he wrote books about, what he talks about, what he keeps on finding ways to bring more meaning into his life is because, again, if he can withstand it and he can grow from it at a different level, then why not maximize what you're capable of? The little 4-year-old girl that I deal with, right? Because she's also the younger sister. I can't talk to her anywhere like that. I mean, not just because of the age difference, but for her, like if I'm trying to communicate with her, it's more just like, hey, I don't like when you act like that. If you act like that, then why do I want to help you? You know, it's a much more different way of dealing with her because you have to be able to look at how someone responds. And there's a lot of people in our society that are not responding because we're not giving them any real pressure. The pressure that they want, that they require. And this is something that I experienced personally in my life, where when my life was easiest, where like I didn't really even have to do anything. I had money coming in and all this stuff. And if anyone asked anyone, they're like, oh, look at Anthony. He made it. He has the thing. I almost killed myself. I literally woke up and I didn't even know it was going to happen. And then what happened that literally took all of those negative emotions where I was afraid that I wasn't going to make it off my bed was that I told myself, I'm going to make moves in a direction of my purpose. And I don't care if the consequences for me are going to be negative or positive because I'm going to learn and grow from them because I know my level of what is enough to get me out of bed and what matters enough. So for everyone, again, it's going to be different. But what we do when we try to cap off the top end of people by not being able to accept what I'm saying here, again, don't think that when I'm saying about this boy is something that I'm applying to everyone. Go up to the sensitive girl that went and treat her the same way. That would be insane, right? What I'm saying is, though, when you don't allow them to exercise that level of what they have inside of themselves, it doesn't just go away. It festers and it ends up becoming very, very, very dangerous. It's the kind of person who just kind of white knuckles everything through life and then they just snap, they kill, they do all sorts of stuff because their whole life they never had anything where they got up and they thought to themselves, like, this actually means enough to me that if I don't do it, I'm going to feel bad because I feel like I need to do it. A simple way of thinking about it is like, I'm working in this job, right? And this job takes a lot of effort or whatever, time and energy I don't want to put into it. If I was to die or lose this job, I don't feel as if I mattered because I was doing something that wasn't enough suffering. It wasn't hard enough. Because it wasn't hard enough, that means that if they go to replace me with someone else, then basically I am of a lower. I could have not only done and been more, but I've wasted my life doing something I didn't want to do to accomplish something that didn't need to be accomplished because someone else was already going to do it in a different area. There's very, very many men, especially which one of the deepest, darkest parts of the human psychology that I'm still coming to grips with is the whole aspect behind war itself and why a lot of our societies will push us into wars to stop us from going into civil wars and killing each other because we haven't allowed ourselves to experience suffering in our own directed path that is for us. So now here, I kept pulling this up. Empathy born from pain carries a different weight, right? I think we can all agree with that. And there's an example where there's a person who's starving to death, right? Basically. And he goes to someone who's extremely wealthy, has so much food that basically they're wasting it. Like if they couldn't give it away, it would just rot. That person gives them a plate of food. Thank you. I'm very grateful they eat the food and they're good. But there's another scenario where you run into another person who's maybe almost just as suffering as you, right? But they have just one plate of food. Now they look at you and they cut that in half knowing that it's not going to quite satiate them, right? So they're going to take on more suffering, but for you. Now, the way that you feel about that person who cut their meal in half to give it to you versus the person who's just like, oh, here's some of the whatever I have left over, it's going to be very different. And that is part of the love that I think you have for a mother that is indispensable. The suffering that she went through carrying you for not, even if you try to give them drugs and try to limit it, she had to change her whole body, her whole life, everything to make sure that you came into this world. And then she continued to do that, where like a mother's body, like I've heard that a mother's body will literally detect the saliva from the kid's mouth, decalcify her own bones to put it in the milk to give to the kid. Now that is the love that you have for a mother that wouldn't be born without that suffering. Imagine if your mother never suffered for you and would never suffer for you. You saying you could still have the same love for her, knowing that she never actually had to go through anything to get you, and she doesn't really want to go through anything to keep you. The idea that someone would suffer for me, that they would give something or die possibly for me, makes me feel a way about them, makes me remember them in a way that I would never have for anyone else. Doesn't matter if you just have the things, right? And so there is a balance here, and we have to understand that in life, I think, right? It's pretty obvious that, you know, time and experience is the one thing that we have. And so if someone is willing to demonstrate that they will trade some amount of their experience for something else to better themselves, to give to you, that's going to carry a weight of value that you just can't supplement with anything else. Because, you know, if you trade your life for mine, any, or I do for you, what can you do that supplements that has that same value? Is there anything?
Definitely. Jay, I saw you're gonna respond earlier on. Please feel free.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that with science, right? Just looking at our biological roots from a biological standpoint, right? Suffering, such as physical pain, it's essential for our survival. You know, Anthony mentioned it earlier, right? That a kid doesn't learn unless he actually sticks his finger in the socket or puts his hand on the oven, you know, or in the oven or on the stove. So they'll learn that way. So it's essential for us. But on a cognitive level, right, as a human being, that emotional depth, that sets us apart from the animals, right? And so, and that's what you're talking about when you're talking about change and choice, right? Specifically choice, red pill versus blue pill, going back to the Matrix, right? Any of you might have known this back in the day when you were practicing and helping others with some other things, but the hedonic treadmill, right? If we understand that, what is the hedonic adaptation? Humans really are just trying to tend to, you know, they return to a relatively stable level of happiness, despite any of those major positive or negative life changes. So that's the feeling that they have inside them, because there's something missing, or they've got to experience life a certain way. But that's cognition, and animals don't have that. But I also want to talk about what you were talking about earlier, especially because you're a parent, right? Or somebody who's a guardian of children. And so in that sense, you know, look at it this way, right? My friend said to me the other day, he said, you know, the one thing I did to help my kids so they don't experience my trauma or what I had to go through growing up also disabled them. I had to think about that for a second, because he shielded them from all the pain, all the suffering, all the things he went through. When it came time for them to experience life on their own, they fell apart. they felt they could not just take the regular way to go to the store and buy groceries. If something happened at the grocery store, they lost their shit.
Yeah.
And they had to call dad. How do I do this? What do I do? How do I get this? They didn't know. They had no clue. And so, you know, there's this thing now, they're talking about safe suffering, right? And that's okay, right? But I think one of the things is sometimes you just gotta, I think Kimberly also had something she wanted to say but couldn't say it exactly. But I think it's sometimes you have to just let them go and experience things for themselves in society.
100%.
And that's how they gain their knowledge about how to handle life experiences. But I think at the core of what's been said is suffering necessary for an individual's existence? Now, while it's a powerful like catalyst for personal growth, resilience, right? The stuff that I had to go through after a tornado, right? We could hypothetically exist without it. But that in enduring it, overcoming hardship, having to experience the pain and suffering, that's what helps us develop character and meaning. And so I think that's at the core of everything. So really, why is suffering important for an individual? Well, growth, wisdom, right? Resilience.
It allows them to navigate the world on their own. Like the example you gave with the example that you gave with the kid and the light socket, right? And the idea that the pain is just physical. One of the big things about the Shaolin monks experiencing pain, it's not just for your body, it's the mental aspect of it too. And so imagine that you could have a kid that you could spare them the pain of ever touching the burner simply by telling them that, right? What that would mean now is that your kid is going to they're never going to allow their own personal curiosities to push them past something that someone else told them, which means that they're never going to question things. They're never going to have their own identity. They're going to just accept. So yes, I could save them that suffering, but the problem with that is that now they're just accepting everything that I say verbatim. Now, for instance, I might tell the kid not to climb on this thing because if you fall off, you can hurt yourself. They fall off, they hurt themselves, and then they go back to it again. Why? Because for whatever reason, they enjoy the thrill of that more than the pain stops them. Just like people who, do stuff like, caving or jumping out of airplanes for a living or anything that's kind of like crazy or has a certain amount of pain. People who explore the edges of society, there are certain areas where they wouldn't ever do that on their own had they not had the ability to suffer. Because if they didn't have the ability to suffer, they wouldn't be able to know how far they can go and when they should stop or not stop outside of just taking what everyone else says for them. So if you want a kid that can think for themselves, they also have to be able to experience the consequences of making wrong decisions on their own. Otherwise,
that's not through suffering. That's not through suffering. I don't believe that's through jumping out, being. I think that's
that's pain or discomfort, right?
Being able to think clearly is a game. Being able to be honest with yourself, that will solve all those problems. Literally.
How do you do that without suffering, though?
Yes.
Have you never had something or experienced something that someone said that kind of hit you in the chest where you're like, oh shit, like damn, like it was a hard truth, something that maybe I thought I was right, and then I found out I was so wrong that it kind of hit me in the chest, and I could have just denied it, pushed it off, and then that feeling would have went away, or I could dig down deeper and be like, yeah, I was wrong. Now I'm taking on more suffering. This is why I was wrong. This is what I can now do differently in the future. That I think that we agree that would be that's suffering, right?
That's thinking.
Well, that's the mental pain. But isn't that still mental? Imagine there's certain painful things in your past that you could just forget about, or you could choose to think about them. When you think about them, you're going. But when you think about them, are you not going to experience the feelings that are associated? Right? Like if you think about
not always.
I mean, okay, so like
this is the reason why someone who was sexually abused, for example, does not go on to necessarily sexually abuse other people. It's the reason why someone who was wrong does not go and wrong others.
But if they think back about their moment of being sexually abused, do they not feel some amount of suffering because they can feel some emotions from that moment?
You see, but this is nice. Mark and I, Mr. Carm and I were talking earlier. Zara, I'm keen for you to speak, my friends. Mr. Carm and I were talking earlier, right?
Half of the life.
So give me a second, Zara. Come right. I give you. So give me a second, 30 seconds. I give you the mic, my friend. So Mr. Carm and I were talking earlier, and I'm always on him, and he's like, well, we have to learn to let go of our past, not keep living it. Mm-hmm. Right. I'm saying it's a choice we make, Anthony. We have to decide. I want to let this. This is not going to control my life. Yes, but mentally it might be painful to think about whatever your past, but we have to decide. I will let it go. It's not going to control me. I find a way to go forward.
So I think maybe it's the definition of suffering again. Remember, we're saying that the suffering is it's again for suffering here. It's simply going to be mental, physical pain, right? Again, so like mentally, right? I'm in a moment where I could put on the TV and just watch something funny, or I could choose to think back to an action that I did where I was like, God damn it, Anthony, like that was so embarrassing. Why did you say, like, what did you do? And now that I'm that is suffering. Again, I could be watching TV, enjoying myself, but instead I chose to dig down and be like, damn.
I agree with you. I agree.
So that's suffering, right? And then so isn't that suffering valuable?
We started the conversation, Anthony. I said, what's the definition of suffering? Now remember that's where we started, right?
Yeah.
And then I said to you, is unnecessary hurting ourselves for no good reason, right?
Well, then that's what I said. Do you ever know? Can you know what is necessary when there's so much? And then that's when I gave the example of the stubbing of the toe, right?
So I think you can know what's unnecessary because, like you just said, even the thinking part, reliving your nightmare, reliving your trauma, totally not beneficial at all, unnecessary. Let it go, deal with it, move on. I'm not saying forget it. Probably like if you have to go and talk to a therapist, go and talk to a therapist.
I feel like you're so evolved. I feel like you're so evolved. You're so that you're not understanding the simple problems that people have to deal with, and so. You're saying that you know if it's necessary or unnecessary, and I'm saying that someone who especially hasn't really ever overcome stuff. Imagine a 3 or 4 year old kid; they don't understand that necessity of certain suffering. When you say, "Hey, look, don't eat all of this whatever candy; it's going to cause you pain later." Whatever the suffering is, brushing your teeth when you don't want to. They don't understand the necessity of it. Now, when we get a little older, we start to kind of understand things. We think we understand it. But then I gave you the example with stubbing your toe, right? And you said, okay, well, pain is necessary, right? To stop you from damaging your foot.
But what if it was remove the obstacle, remove the dumbbells that's making you.
But what if it was more than just the removing of the obstacle, and it was actually training you to be more visually aware of your environment, the surrounding environment, and training you to walk differently because of the pain that you can relate to the pain of accidentally stubbing your toe, and because it's still there in the subconscious, you are paying attention to your environment differently. And now when you're in your 70s or 80s and you're not as capable, it could be the difference between you falling and breaking a hip or dying simply because you stubbed your toes so many times. So it wasn't about damaging your toes. It was about protecting you from something way out in the future that you weren't aware of now. Because like I'm saying, there's not a single thing that I don't think anyone will disagree. If you disagree, I don't think anyone here, all of us together, can ever say that we can know for certainty whether or not something is necessary or not, right?
Zara,
just say that's unnecessary. You have to be God or something, right?
Zara, now what do you think?
I was all this time, I was asking God, why we suffer? Why? What's the reason? he said, you, man, you clicked, you just clicked, accept all cookies on life's terms and conditions. So yeah, you're right. I did accepted everything, and so he said. Then someone was saying like, why do we like, you know, suffering polishes the soul. Right? By now, my soul has been like a mirror. I mean, someone said your suffering builds character. I'm like, "Oh, by now I've been built so much character. I should be in a Netflix movie or drama serial." But
This is why I love Zara. He makes his point in beautiful ways. Go, Zara, carry on, please. Carry on, carry on.
yeah, it's like point is I was reading a story long back, and it was about a potter. Okay, and the potter was a craftsman, and he used to make amazing cups. And I know what Kimberly said, and I know what Annie said. Okay, look, when you go for the gym and when you get back home, and then you give a little bit rest to your body, and then after the rest, that's where the magic happens. Okay, and I know what Kimberly said. He said the choices, and I know what the choice is. Uh, the 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 front end or the back end. But uh, then I remember what Jay said about Matrix movie. But let's come back to the story. What I was telling. Um, there was a man who used to make beautiful, amazing cups. Okay, and he was a craftsman. So he used to make those cups for the kings. And one day, a blind man like me, he came to him and he asked for a cup. So you, he went inside and he brought me the finest one. But because I was blind and I I touched the cup and it was, and I smiled back because it has no story in it. No, it was smooth. And then he went. I said, the man said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Man, I need some." I said, Bring me something that is cracked, that has some sorrow, some setbacks." He went inside, and this time he brought me something, with a little hairline crack. But that hairline, because he used to make it for the kings, was sealed with gold. So, and this time I said, yeah, this one sings to me. So now years pass, the years are gone, and but that now he's very famous. He's viral. That craftsman is viral all over because he no longer hide the cracks. He now honor them, and in time, people never came for perfection. Now they know that something which is broke is the real beauty. So no matter like whatever we go through, okay, Anthony, like the suffering, the most suffering we all have in we humans, half of our life is about pains and we go through, and the other half we keep thinking about those sufferings. So like how Annie said, and like how Kam said, you need to get. Now let's see of the Matrix movie. Now what happened, that the Neo used to have those. Okay, before going to that, Adam, okay, he was thrown out of the paradise, and he was not crying for Eva. Okay, he was crying because he knew that that the beloved God is not happy for him. And then his tears used to become prayers. He was not crying for forever. Noah, he lived for 950 years, and people were like throwing jokes on him. If you look at him, the weather is clear, the clouds are clear, everything is clear, and he is preparing an ark, cutting trees. But people throw jokes on him, but he knew something is coming. His patience. Abraham, he was thrown into fire. He sacrificed his own son, and then still he kept on doing it. Yusuf, betrayed by brothers, his own brothers, threw him in the well, imprisoned. And Musa, raised in Pharaoh's palace, right? He was there in Pharaoh's. But likewise, Esau, born miraculously, but rejected by his own and lifted before crucifixion. Likewise, Muhammad. His suffering was like part of the prophets. Muhammad was orphaned in a very young age. Then later, Karbala happened. Lost his own grandson in Karbala. So the suffering, but I mean, now life is pain, Anthony, and we have to love this pain. We cannot run away from it. And the sooner we understand it, the sooner we are going to get rid of suffering. So that's a little happiness and love for everyone. Blessings.
The wisdom you drop, it's when you talk, sometimes I just have to like stop and just like, I feel like you're talking to me, and it's like you're always putting me back as like a child, where I'm like, okay, this guy knows. So like I have to really think sometimes, because you wrapped it up really well. And I was just thinking about the monks, that a little bit of the suffering. There's a thing here that I might just show you guys here that I don't know. Let's see if it helps explain it again in a simpler way. Let me see if I can cast this real quick, and then we can head out soon, because I know we could talk about this forever.
Anthony, can you please turn it down? Whatever you're playing, can you please turn it down? We don't want to wake Calm up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You guys are too cool.
Hey,
He's been
man,
snoring for the past hour.
I'm not even sure if you guys will be able to
I-
hear it or not, or how that works.
I have a couch bed. I had time to actually pull that out.
I know for a fact that you were watching the inside of your eyelids.
Turn it up.
Can you guys hear this? Wait, that's a little
No.
loud for me. I just played it a little bit. I'm not sure if you could hear it.
Mm-mm.
I paused it. Could you hear what he just said?
No, there's no sound. I can't hear any sound. Is it me?
No, there's no sound, Anthony.
No, I can't
Okay,
hear either.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I might have I haven't used this thing where I've shared before, so I shared the screen. It might not share the audio.
So when you're sharing the screen, go to the third option on the right hand side, right, and then activate the audio on the at the bottom as well. Share the audio and share the video.
So
Share the entire screen.
So I go to present. The third option, it says, all right, I'll stop the screen here, and then I go to present. There's share screen. Don't hit that. I've got entire screen.
Yes.
Okay, I see here. It shares. Okay, I see the little switch there. Cool.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, got it. All right, I'm gonna play it really quick, and then you tell me if it's too loud or not.
Feel that it's like just.
Okay, that was a little louder. How's that?
It's lovely. It's lovely.
All right, cool. We'll go back a little bit, because it was just what's the clip I had.
You're gonna feel that it's like just hit.
Back to it.
No, thank you. The first arrow always hits. You're gonna feel that it's like just hit your ego, for example. Make sure the second arrow doesn't hit. And the second arrow is the one that oftentimes you are shooting at yourself, because after the first one hit, you are crying about being hit. I observe, what is this sensation? What is it that I call, that human called pain? I can detect, I can feel, and then you learn to release.
Okay, that was all I wanted to show there. Oh. So that was a deeper part of the video, but that was the part that I was trying to mention where let me unshare this now here. to be able to accept, to be able to recognize that first arrow, to accept, to detect that arrow, and then to release that pain, it does create that. That in itself is suffering, but it's suffering to relieve, or to, basically make sure that you don't experience it in the future. And so there will always be suffering, Annie. Like I know because you're over there in the UK, where everything is like, hey, we're all flowers and sunshine. Don't do anything too rough. Everyone's got to be very sensitive over there. I get that.
That's just
Who
any
told
vibe.
you that,
That's
brother?
just any.
Who told
That's
you
just
that?
me.
Aren't you guys getting? Wait, don't be careful.
No.
If you guys say the wrong thing, once you guys they might arrest you guys if you say it too much. Because I understand you
What
guys.
do
have
you
to be,
mean?
don't hurt anyone's feelings.
It's not sunshine and
Look,
it's
I'll
not
do it over here
sunshine
in the US.
flowers. No, it's not. It's not sunshine and flowers. Sunshine, okay, it never happens in the UK. Flowers, yeah, maybe. Well,
No sunshine.
it's never
I
sunny.
agree. And there's no one to arrest you anyway, so no one's going to arrest you. Mr. Calm, you've been unmuted for a long time. What do you want to share with us, my friend?
All right.
And
He's
lived in the UK. He knows that it's not happy and glory. Mr. Calm.
Yeah, that's why I ran away from the UK, because there's no sunshine there. It was just ridiculous. My gosh.
But with the sunshine
I'm
comes
an
heat.
African. Yeah, I'm an African. I need heat. So wherever there's no heat, I run away from. Anyway, Anthony, I'd like you to really think about what the statement. One man's poverty is actually the kingdom of heaven to another. Replace poverty with suffering, because you can do that. Poverty is a type of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why there are wars.
Mm-hmm.
And why you can apply that concept to almost everything that you've been talking about.
Yeah. I agree so much, and this is one of those scenarios. I guess I came in from a more one-sided perspective, where it's like I understand both sides, but for me, I guess the more being sensitive, or not pushing too hard, that's easy. That comes intuitive. It's really easy not to push someone into a rough situation where they're suffering, right? Like it's more desirable for me. Like, why would I ever go to this kid? I don't want to talk. He's a 13-year-old kid. Why am I going to go and say something to him that might get him upset, just to get him upset, or just to upset his mom or whatever? No, I don't get anything out of that. But what I thought to myself is, like, I've been here before, and I kind of understand that perspective, and that perspective for a lot of, not all, but a lot of young men, is that their life they would enjoy life so much more if it was harder. It's like if you played a video game and it was on easy mode, and it was too easy, you couldn't lose. It's like, well, what's even the point of getting up every day to do this if it's just no challenge? For them, there's a certain level of challenge that they're not getting the ability to try out, to see, like, oh man, look, like that was hard. I wasn't sure if I could do it, but my goodness, I did it. And now that I did it, I feel so powerful. Like, I'm going to go try something else. And I'm going to keep pushing, because I didn't even know what I was capable of until somebody showed me what I was capable of. That was the angle that that was the angle I think I was pushing toward more. And yeah.
You can apply that to narcissism.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Narcissists enjoy seeing other people suffer. So when they make other people suffer, that is why there is suffering. They push even more. They make it harder. It gives them pleasure. It's their heaven.
So are you saying that, like, you could apply that to narcissism, as in, like, that I could see how it could be abused and become a narcissistic thing? Or I could look at my scenario where my stepdad was extremely strict. Like, the life that I went through with him, I wouldn't, like, not many people, I don't think anyone really should, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, because of what he did for me in that scenario. I hated. I was actually even,
and from his perspective, he enjoyed it. He
I don't. That's
loved
the
doing
thing.
what he wanted.
That's kind
Now,
of what.
he
That's
could
what I
also
want to.
tell you.
Some people
He could
can.
also tell you that he did it with love, for love, with love.
That's the thing. He wouldn't even say any of those things. That for
No,
him, I think so. For every situation is different, and I do agree. Narcissists are like, that's a big risk. Is when they're out there just making you suffer just to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the suffering that comes from me trying to force something onto you, and then there's the suffering where like there's inside of you that is misaligned with the world,
And that's why any indicated that there is helpful suffering and there's unhelpful suffering.
Yes, and
Suffering
deciding what
helps.
is helpful versus unhelpful is
Right.
for a person is very difficult to do, because some people like David Goggins, right? David Goggins isn't like his life isn't worthwhile unless he is like he's a millionaire right now. His knees are busted out. He's jumping out of helicopters to go fight fires in places where the people are out there doing that because they are literally broken, destined. That's the only thing they can do. He's doing it simply because, and there's the biological aspect behind it. We have this thing called the anterior midcingulate cortex, or what, the anterior midcingulate cortex, whatever. It's a part of your brain basically that as you do things that are uncomfortable, that you don't want to do, but it provides benefit, it grows in size. There's actually a pretty strong correlation too between like people who are overweight will have a very small one, and when they go and they push themselves and they lose weight, it'll grow. Anytime you push yourself to do
But
something,
isn't there something more important than that?
well, so
Why he's actually doing it?
So for him, he has his reasons, and his reasons are different from mine. So for me, I know myself enough where even though when I hear him talk, sometimes it like makes me feel away. I recognize that that's just Goggins, right? Like I'm not David Goggins, right? So if David Goggins was, I'm not going to ever try to I'm not going to compare myself to him in that area at all. I'm not going to go through buzz training twice. I'm not going to run a marathon, 100 miles in the sun with like broken shin.
Yeah,
that
because
to me
you
is,
really think that that's suffering.
Well, suffering, again, from what we're doing, it's just anything it's physical or mental pain. And there are going to be things that are going to cause you mental pain. For example, like
but Anthony, for him, it's not suffering. For him, it's meaning. If he seeks meaning in that
alignment, it's even in what he sees as joy.
But you can find
it's
meaning.
heaven.
But what I'm saying is
like
you can,
surrendering.
Okay, so what I'm saying is you can find meaning and joy in that suffering, because here's the thing: anything that you've never done before is going to be completely new to you. For you to try to jump into it, you have no idea what you're getting into. It's completely unknown. So there's going to be a certain amount of fear, and that's going to be suffering itself. And just the whole idea of trying to do something you've never done before, there's a lot of suffering, but overcoming that suffering can provide you with stuff that you might not have ever thought of. I'll give you an example with snowboarding for me.
I think you're talking about spiritual suffering here.
There's both mental and physical.
That goes on with surrendering. When you surrender, if it's about spiritual suffering, then when you surrender, you let the things go one way, the way the Creator has decided. Then but when it comes, come, please.
No, continue, because I think you have a point that I was not going to explain in that particular way, but you have a way of explaining things which can be beneficial for all of us. So please continue, Zara, with what you're saying. Zara
said what he's going to say, right? Let me welcome Cherry. How you doing, Cherry? Let me welcome Kenny as well. It's always great to have you.
I'm sorry, I was maybe able to pay attention to the comments because this conversation has been so like intense for me.
Can I tell you quick? Mike.
Yeah.
Me in a tutu, in a Hawaiian tutu at that, you with colorful strings. You imagine that, Mike. Mike is suffering right now because I said such words. And even that, Mike, would be in my red bikini.
That is just. Oh my gosh.
Annie, I think it would be suffering for anyone watching, to be honest. And thanks for the image that I didn't need and I don't know how to get rid of now. I thought this evening was going well, Annie. Thank you.
Oh, you guys are something else, man. Oh, like okay, so
See,
for me,
and Sony.
okay, here you go. Yeah, God.
Like you would like if it's about spiritual suffering, okay. So
Well, can you help me explain what's the difference between spiritual suffering and like mental suffering, like what I'm talking about?
Okay, the one you don't take. I mean, I've seen people here. Okay, they hurt you. Okay, intentionally. Okay, so you reply them back, and especially the loved ones, the ones you already know. Okay, so they want to reply to see what you reply back. For example, today, one of my niece, she was holding a remote control in her hand. Okay, but I know she's too young to understand everything, and because they don't have a mother, so it's me who's grown up. I'm adult, and I have to. What I did, where I was wrong, that I took the remote control, I snatched it from her hands. That was my mistake. But the way she replied back was very aggressive. Was very, very, very aggressive. That's when I realized, look, Zarar, what did you learn over years, over like so many years? So I because I was wrong, and I said her sorry, and that sorry, that excuse, that didn't took much time for me to think about that excuse, that I have to say her sorry after 1 hour. That came at once. Okay, because I felt at that moment, at specific that moment, not after like 1 hour. I realized why did she? I didn't fell on that trap. That how she replied to me. I didn't fell in that trap, but I felt what I did wrong. So that's something which you call the spiritual suffering and surrendering, at the same moment. Not after like after 1 hour you're reflecting back and introspecting, and then you're going to reply. So, are you guys listening to me?
I'm listening. Yeah.
I thought that's where the self-awareness comes into it, and being honest with ourselves. I think when we do that, it's not suffering. You know, it's something that we want.
But even with what I'm sorry, what you were saying there with the spiritual suffering, and you were saying like how it came in that moment and not later. Even that, I feel like you're too advanced. Like that's something that like. So if you are still developing yourself, I feel like there's going to be times where you'll think back later and realize, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. Then you go and you repent honestly. And then over time, you get to a point where when that feeling comes, you're like, okay, I apologize. But for, like a 3-year-old or someone who's just not developed, all they can experience is their emotions. And then, so maybe then they come back later.
When I say spiritual suffering, it's because they don't have a mother, and she is like now 13 and 14. So I know what they have suffered in their life. So it doesn't mean any my mind has to be very present in the purpose, and to see like, oh, they are still growing, and they have seen that traumas in their life, and I have to. And it didn't took me much time to think or react, but I said at once, I'm sorry, and I just hugged her, and she was shouting and everything the way the kids does. But my point is to surrender at once, not to like, for example, let's take a movie now. Example, it's the Matrix. In the Matrix, it's hiding the reality. But when you look at the movie Jumanji, if you have heard of movie, so in that movie, that the game itself is a purpose. That game is a purpose. In the Matrix, the Neo, whatever, chooses truth through pain. In Jumanji, the players, they grow through
they try to avoid
trials, right?
Yeah.
Right. In the Matrix, the Neo sheds identity to become one. But in Jumanji, the avatars were like to reveal hidden things, right? So I mean, you can neoliberate.
But in that scenario, even then, I think there are different levels, because Neo himself in the Matrix, he actually did again have to go through a trial, because there was a time where he made a mistake and he chose Trinity over being the one and saving everyone else. And it wasn't until after he sat down and came to terms with the fact that he would have to sacrifice the woman that he loved to be the man that she loved, because there was no other option. But he did go through a trial himself. It just looks so much different. So, and I was saying the example of pushing yourself to suffer and how it looks different for everyone. The first time I ever got on a snowboard, I just went straight to, I was on the blue run. You know, there's like the bunny hill, there's the green hill, and then there's like the blue and then the black. I went straight to the blue hill. And I remember someone like looking at me, oh, you're that guy that was always on his face. He was always on the ground crawling. That's what they were saying to me, right? But 4 days later, I was going down the double black, because I knew that, like, okay, I'm pretty good at sport. I can handle a certain amount of falling, getting up, learning from that. And it's going to look vastly different for me than it's going to look for other people. And the thing is when I'm in my emotional situation, like again with David Goggins, right? The things that he does, when he does it, it makes me feel like a bitch. It makes me feel bad almost about myself, because I'm like, I'm not at that level, but I know my level and where I want to be. And so I accept that. And so it's not the same problem. The problem that I'm really concerned about, I think overall, is when we are so personally sensitive to our own suffering that we try to tamper down everyone else's suffering, thinking it's going to make their life better. And all we do is ruin their life, because some people, you know, like diamonds, come from the pressure, from the heat. You want to get a nice, sharp, long-lasting sword. You put it into the fire until it's about to, you know, malleable, and you beat the shit out of it until it doesn't feel the pain of that hammer anymore. When it's not doing anything, then you put it back in the fire. Then you bring it out and you beat it again. And it doesn't even look like you're doing much, but under the surface, it makes dramatic changes. And so,
Anthony,
go ahead.
If I may please add something. I just need 2 minutes for this, right? I was going to say, first of all, your son is really lucky to have you, because you care about him. Clearly, you care about him. And if it didn't, it wouldn't be your obsession as to what to tell him, how to say it, and make sure the outcome is going to be something he's going to benefit from. If you didn't care, you wouldn't even be talking about it on this live event, would you? It wouldn't be an obsession of yours, right? Because simply as a parent, you care about him, and he's really lucky to have you in his life. I just want to acknowledge that first. And secondly, you know, the level of suffering in the world for the longest time has pushed people to the level there are a group of people who literally believe that this life that we are living is a simulation. Some people find it stupid. Some people believe in it. Okay, it's all to do with, because hardware-wise, we all look the same. But software-wise, which is the brain, that's what differentiates between us. That's why some of us believe that this life is a simulation, because the level of suffering is so unbearable, right? That they get disconnected. Yeah, when the device heats up, you have to unplug it from the wall, right? So they get heated up. They get heated up so much they have to disconnect from objective reality, right? So objective reality is painful, right? So they have to disconnect from it in order to breathe for a little bit, okay? Relax, right? So what they say is this life is a simulation. They go through that rabbit hole, which is never ending, right? So now I want everybody to imagine this scenario. I'm a character in this game, in this simulation, right? And I don't even know. I'm just a character. And in this game, right? In this game, I'm kind of stuck in this level, and I can't go back, I can't go forward, I can't go left, I can't go right. And I'm like, I'm stuck. This game is really, this life is really stupid, because from the character's point of view, This is life. Now, I want you to imagine taking 5 steps back. Then from the screen, you fall out, right? And we find out, oh, it was Anthony who was controlling the character, being Cyrus, right? So we just went one level up from character to player. So you are the player, right? Now, you play the game and you're like, oh, this character, Cyrus, is really stupid. He's kind of stuck. I don't know how to control him, right? And you kind of suffering there because you're like, well, I don't know, because he doesn't have those skills that I need him to actually go to the next stage, right? Now, we're going to take 5 steps back from you, and we're going to get to Annie, the creator of the game. Now, he's looking at you, so it's all about perspective, isn't it? He's looking at you as one of the players that play in his game, right? So we took a few steps back, right? And then for every step of the way, we got to a new concept, from the character to the player to the creator, right? So and then Annie thinks, oh, I don't know how to get Anthony to play the game and control Cyrus in a way that he can go through the stages and finish the game. Now, every time someone suffers, some people think, oh, I have empathy. I feel empathy towards this person. Oh, I feel sympathy, right? The focus is there, right? For some people, it's like, well, that's life. Deal with it, right? So some people have, and some people lack sympathy. For me personally, every time someone goes through those trials and tribulations, I'm like, what decision is he gonna make? Come on, inspire me, right? When someone goes, now you as an example, right? I can't wait for you to tell me, like in 2 weeks, 3 weeks time, right? To tell me how your relationship with your son has improved, got worse, got better, stopped, what you did about what you've done about it, right? So every time someone goes through suffering, I wonder, what is he gonna decide? Come on, inspire me, tell me. That's what really matters to me, right?
Yeah.
And and whenever someone suffers, that person has a decision they haven't made yet. The decision they have to make, but they haven't made yet. That's where suffering gets lengthened, okay, and gets to the level of kind of perpetuity, and that person keeps suffering and suffering, because people keep doing what they're doing, and if you do what you were doing, you will get what you were getting, right? So that's the point I wanted to make. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are trying to educate me, and I'm trying to. Yeah, you guys are. Thank you, man.
It's not just me. It's not just me.
It was a lot. No, it was a lot. Like
I was only sharing. That's all.
No. It was. I really appreciate that. Like, I just have to hold on to that for now, because, yeah, and yeah, definitely. I feel like I'm suffering to some extent because I'm not. I guess I could be more.
Empty the cup. You have to empty the cup.
Yeah.
To have more. The one you already very filled up, okay, with lots of things. Sometimes you have to empty it and to let new things come in, like what Cyrus said and what everybody else said. And so that and when I'm sure, like after this event, you're going to have rest and think about.
I kind of want to just do like a second version of this already.
Actually,
Anthony,
that's a Shaolin strategy. Emptying the cup or emptying yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony, I want you to do us a favor and tell us, when you're talking to your son, right? This is really important. How is it that he perceives you? So you go ahead and tell him about the shirt, right? The moment you learn what he hears and how he hears it, then you get to decipher his brain, right? So it's not what you say, it's how you say it and the language you use. Have you ever spoken with somebody who was foreign and didn't know how to speak your language?
It's a lot more difficult, yeah.
What do you use when things become difficult? What is he going to use when things become difficult? He's going to use something called strategy, right? He's going to use the words that he already knows, because your strategies can never, ever become better than your existing level of knowledge.
Yeah. Okay. Oh man, this is a deep one here. I definitely have to work on certain things for when it comes to part of the reason why I feel like I was so pushy with trying to explain the situation with his name is Jamari. It was because I saw such a positive response that I know was specific to that, but I know that it also wouldn't necessarily apply to every situation. And I felt like I saw it in more than other ways, where like he started to show me different type of respect, but also a friendliness where
Are we ready to unlearn?
I'll see him look at me and see how I respond to something. And then like he'll kind of come over and like maybe like mess around with his mom. Usually it would just be him and her messing around. He'll go to mess with her and then he'll kind of look at me like, am I going to jump into it? And then if I kind of jump into it and play, then he's more, but then if I kind of don't, then he's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't. So I see where he's now looking to me for guidance that he wasn't looking to me for before, because I was able to take something that mattered a lot to him and put it into terms that he could understand. Now, those terms are hard, like they're harsher for certain people and they're not going to be able to understand it. And I have to get better at being able to recognize who I'm communicating with and how to explain these different, these different things to them. Because I really definitely, I want the people at the far ends of the spectrum to be able to maybe not even fully understand, but to be able to, I want them to understand.
Unlearn.
Okay.
Unlearn
that. Like, I want the person at the low end of the spectrum to kind of be able to understand, or at least accept the person on the other side. And
maybe the other one on the other side, like Annie, for example, or Cyrus, he has seen something, maybe the same suffering, okay, but maybe the lesson you learned was different and Cyrus learned something different. But to know each other well, you have to unlearn to learn and relearn. And the hardest part is the unlearning, because that's where everything messed up. Because Rumi, when his wife Kira was, like I told you the story other day, that Shams threw all his ancestors' books, okay, in the swimming pool. And when he never allowed his wife to enter in the room, Rumi never allowed his wife to enter in the room. But when he saw a dervish throwing all the books of Rumi in the swimming pool, he was like, he ran and came down and said, Rumi, okay, you never allowed me to touch your books, and this strange man is throwing your books in the pool. What's the point? Then Shams, he went to the pool and picked up the books, and when he opened, they were dry. So the wife was quiet, and she went back to the room. So sometimes you have to, but to unlearn, to let new things come in, right?
Yeah, like right now, I feel like what you're saying is like this is so even for me right now, this is maybe this is a wrong way to phrase it in my mind. Maybe that's the problem, but I feel like this is a little bit of a suffering that I have to accept, because I need to be able to empty the cup. But then I also have this thing where, there's the feeling of emptying the cup is to say like, hey, all that stuff that you have that you felt really proud or valuable, that's useless here. Throw it away. And I know that is 100% true. But what I know to be objectively true doesn't change the fact that it still feels.
But I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I was watching an Elon Musk interview earlier today, and then he was like, there are 5 stages to develop a business or develop anything really, right? And then he explained them, and he said, I made a fatal mistake of deleting everything and starting from the beginning. No, you don't have to unlearn everything. However, I agree with Zara. You have to unlearn perhaps certain parts of it. And when you're communicating with him, right, and or when you're communicating with your girlfriend or anybody else, right, most people make the fatal mistake of, make the cardinal sin, commit the cardinal sin of making a point. So, is your intention congruent with your actions? And is your actions congruent with your ideal outcome, right? Because you gotta keep an open mind, as they say. What's that saying about? Mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open, right? So you got to keep an open mind when you're talking to him, right? So maybe what you're saying to him is to prove a point or make a point, to put a point across, right? But your ideal situation as a dad is to change behavior, right? So your ideal here is to change behavior. So is your actions congruent with making a point or changing behavior? Because there are two entirely different routes, right? Yeah. So because you're talking to someone who's, is he 13, did you say?
Yeah, 13.
Yeah, so he's governed by hormones and feelings. You are, on the other hand, governed by mostly logic and some feeling. Because I've noticed ever since I've known you, you use the word "I feel." So when people use the word "I feel," so that's to do with the term type of personality, and then it can't help it. Okay, so I'm that kind of person as well myself. That's how I know you. Okay, so that's so I'm I tend to want to portray the image that I'm more of a logical person. However, in reality, I'm more of a feely person than logical person, right? So again, back to that point, you need to ask yourself, am I, when I'm talking to him, right, am I going through the route of making a point, or am I really going to get something that I really, really want, which is changing
behavior,
the type of behavior, and it becomes established when you give him the idea that he's doing it. If it comes from you, it's like it's not gonna
like. No, I think what I'm seeing here is like so with him in particular, I did very well at changing behavior. Here now, I feel like maybe my emotions too wrapped up into it, and so I might be more making a point and less about changing the behavior. So this,
precisely, yes.
Richard, the shoe is not the same size, but you have to wear his socks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And you can, I'm sure, because somehow you're going to put them on. The shoe is not the same size. It's going to hurt you. But like Cyrus said about Elon Musk, but see, when they talk about billionaires and everybody as an example, it surprises me sometimes. Why? Because they own 6 different companies, and they take only 1 hour, and their screen time is only 1 hour in 24 hours. Whereas there are people for them, employees for them, like more than 150,000 employees working for him, and some social medias and analysts who are working for Elon Musk. So he has, and he gives more time to his wives and children and everybody else, except the screen time we use here on the laptop or on the mobile phone. So if we are going to start comparing ourselves to Elon Musk, so like just giving 1 hour to the laptop or mobile phone, then it may not be a universal principle, right? But like what I said, like to understand, let's get back to the point. Not Elon, you have to wear his socks sometimes, okay, to understand his psychology, all right? And I said, like, you are alive, and your beautiful wife is also there, and they have mom and dad blessings as beautiful gift in this world. The most beautiful gift is you are alive and she is alive, and you have your kids healthy, absolutely healthy. So with love, a little bit love, No matter how much they provoke you and irritate you and make you angry and everything, they do naughty to make you. But you just chilling and you're chill.
Hi, Gerard. I got a question. Now, you to understand that sock shoe, thing. Do I need to wear Elon Musk's socks in order to fit in his shoes? Is that what you're trying to say?
Isn't there a saying? I want to go to Festus. I don't like anyone in my studio or in our studio without getting to speak. And I think Festus is in Africa, so his internet might be even more choppy. Calm, you know the saying. You have to walk a mile in a man's shoes to know what he's really experiencing.
Ah, that's what it is.
That's what he just said. Yeah.
Yeah, and you gotta walk for a mile until you're far enough so he can't get them back from you when you wear the shoes. that's why they say about 1 mile.
Okay, gotcha.
Festus, talk to us, my friend. Thank you for joining us. You're never too late, right? And connecting the sciences. The link is you have to copy the link from the chat into your browser, and then you can join us on stage. Love to hear from you. Mr. Festus, please go for it.
Hey, you there, Festus?
Yeah, we'll see you're unmuted, but we can't hear.
Oh, for some reason, I think this. I'm not sure if he's on his phone, but I had some issues with my phone with this application today, and I think someone else did. I'm not sure if they're having issues or what. But man, this conversation already.
Let's do a part two. Let's do a part two.
Yeah,
you're the host. If you think it, why not? There's a conversation to be had, right? There's more
sure.
to talk about this for sure.
Yeah, and it's not that often I get to have a conversation with people where I feel like, okay, I'm definitely certain things I'm gonna sleep on, and I'm gonna take that, and I learned, definitely learning here a lot, and that's just, it's invaluable. And back to the point of suffering, a lot of times learning doesn't really feel that good. Sometimes it feels like suffering, but the benefit, the outcome that comes from it, and that's what I think is worth, it's worth pursuing or worth accepting, right? It's like, I'm not going to go and do what David Goggins does. I'm not going to go jump out of a plane and fight fires just because I need something new to do, because whatever. But for him, that was his suffering that he needs to be able to continue his growth and his meaning in life. And
Anthony,
everyone's different.
What's the worst kind of suffering?
What's the worst kind of suffering? Suffering that you don't choose. I think any suffering that's forced on you and you try to kind of avoid it, and it just can't. Anything you can't.
What do you think?
Am I audible now?
Yeah,
Yes.
You're audible, my friend. The mic is yours. I'll come
All
back.
right.
I'll answer you, Cyrus.
All right. I'm so sorry for coming over so late. I'm so sorry. Okay. I just want to jump in on the definition of suffering right there. Okay. The thing is, for me, pain is something we don't always choose. I don't know if someone has said that already. Suffering is the constant processing of a painful experience. For me, suffering is that moment you process something that is painful, but there is not a guaranteed positive ending. You lost someone and you're worried about that person. The person is not going to come back. Then you stay at it, complaining and saying that if this person was to be alive, you would have been much more better. Now, there is no guaranteed that there will be any positive outcome if you stay like that. That is suffering right there, because you experience that pain on a continual level, but the situation is not going to change. So pain is something that happens to all of us. It's a common thing to human, because when you hurt your foot, something pinch you and all that. But you stay complaining about that particular situation. Now, your brain will automatically or continue to push back to you certain emotion that will cause anger and sorrow, sadness, and pain, but the whole event is over already. So the remaining one is in your brain. That is why suffering, in a lot of sense, has been argued as a choice. Meanwhile, pain is more like things that we can't always control. So every human being goes through pain, but not all human being goes through suffering. So let me just give this last example, right? A farmer who goes to farm in the planting season, he does the hard work, he looks very dirty, and some people may look at him and be like, this person is really suffering. But we all know that when it comes to harvest, that same individual is smiling. If he farms a cash crop, he is cashing out. So the process of doing something, if it is purposeful, it is not suffering. Until when that thing stops to become purposeful, maybe something you're doing, or you're actually worried about something that you know there is no positive ending to it. That right there again is suffering. So that is my own take. I don't know. I came in so late, so I'm just trying to make sure I'm not repeating what someone else has said. But
no, if anything, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say I think that was kind of part of the disconnect too that I had with everyone, is that I think that is the definition that most people kind of agree with. And for me, I was kind of calling it like, if anything, it's like the difference between an unnecessary or useless suffering versus suffering. So for me, what you would say isn't suffering, I was like, that's still, I guess, suffering, because like if I felt the pain, but then I grew from it, I still saw that as suffering. But then there's the difference between, you know, is there any value to this suffering? Are you going to get anything out of this? And so I think that the definition aspect of it, was a real hard part. But I agree.
We didn't answer the question of Cyrus.
Yes. What's
I'm
your
really
idea?
curious to know that. What's the worst kind of suffering?
Hold on. There's a Cherry. Cherry says, and Ella Festus. When I experience suffering, my path to healing is to give myself the grace to grieve and learn, I suppose, Cherry, right? Learn and move on. I think the worst kind of suffering for me, Cyrus, is doing what I don't want to do. Not having joy in my life. And joy to me is when I have total freedom, when I decide what I'm here now, so I decide to go to sleep if I wanted to. But
so it's more or less similar to what Anthony said, like kind of forced upon you. That's the worst kind.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. Calm.
But
Suffering.
no suffering is actually forced upon no one. I'm sorry to barge in, but suffering
No, go ahead.
suffering
If
hasn't
you
been.
answer the
No one
question,
has
go
been
ahead.
forced to. Okay.
Go on, Festus.
Yeah.
We'll come to you. Come after that. You know, so go on, Festus.
Okay, like I was saying, that no one actually is forced to suffer. No human being. We all understand that at some point, our path to purpose, or what we said we love to do, we experience pain in those processes. But what happens is, people who goes through pain doing what they love will never accept it as suffering. But someone else who is not going through that same situation will tell you that that act is suffering. I remember back in the day, someone walked into my working place and be like, "Oh man, you're going through a lot. I can't sit down like this for this number of hours working." And I go like, okay, so for me, I have an end game. The end game is, after I go through all this process, I get something to pay my bills, to take care of certain responsibilities. So that to me turn the whole scenario or the situation from being something you will call suffering to something that is purposeful or meaningful. So suffering takes away the meaning in the act that you are doing. But pain is something we face that is actually painful. It could be a loss of a job, a loved one, something that you don't prepare for it. Now, when that situation happens, what plays out at the end in your mind, how you see the world from that moment, is what defines suffering. Are you Are you going to get anything positive out of it or not?
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth is, every scenario of suffering does not really bring any positive outcome. There is no positive ending. If you are truly suffering, then there is no, because you're not in control of that situation. You don't have anything to do about it. The only thing you do is complain, cry, blame someone else, and that is all. That is why psychologically they will say it's more about you not accepting the now and the ease.
Mm-hmm.
You are so attached to something that you don't want to let go.
So Festus, may I please ask? May I please ask? What's the worst kind of suffering to you?
Okay, what's suffering to me?
What's the worst kind?
What is the worst kind of suffering to you?
Well, it's again goes back to what I was saying. It depends on how you see that situation. Because I don't think, if I refuse to define an experience to be suffering, I don't think it's ever going to be worse in any way. Let's say I'm chasing a purpose and I'm going through hard times doing it. What keeps me going is the fact that at the end of the day, I'm going to have something good. So I might never even see it as suffering.
What happens if you're laying in bed and you just feel so comfortable and you're tired and you don't want to get up, but you have to pee, and you just keep letting that bladder fill up and you're starting to feel that like suffering, and at the end of it, it's like, what do I get out of this? I guess the pain of not having to pee anymore, but I'm not comfortable. Like, that felt like suffering to me. And that's on a small scale. Like, what did I get out of that?
Please go to toilet.
You just made the point there. You made the point there. Your bladder is filling up, but you chose not to go wee, right? You already said it. It's your choice. It's a choice.
Yeah. But then wouldn't I be like, yeah, it is a choice.
The worst type of suffering, Cyrus, for you?
Well, for me, worst kind of suffering.
Well, I've got my answer.
Please go.
Go on, Mr. Calm. Go on, Mr. Calm. Then we hear Cyrus's thoughts as well.
Yeah, I have to intercede him because his answer cannot come before mine. Sorry, Cyrus. But you alluded to this earlier, where you indicated that there are two types of suffering: that suffering that we are aware of and suffering that we are unaware of. I believe the suffering that we are unaware of is the one that is the worst type of suffering.
There's a question, Mr. Calm. See, I think this is probably one of Anthony's points today. We are aware. We know when we're suffering. Many of us choose not to do what we have to do to live.
There are those that are unaware.
Right. I'm saying unaware. I don't think we're ever unaware. I think we know deep down that we're wasting a life away. We're wasting the opportunity. We're wasting the chance. Now, to be truly unaware is a rare, it's a rarity in humanity, if you ask me.
What about? I think it might.
To be able to determine if someone is unaware, you have to be in their mind.
Yes.
You can never be in their mind.
But we can argue this. And say you and I argue this point every day, Michael. Right? I think we're aware. It's whether we choose to acknowledge our truth. Then we can argue about what's true and what's not. I'm saying, but this is a philosophical argument.
And so when you watch somebody, you look at them and they're perpetually suffering, but they look like as if they're not suffering, but they are. They're unaware, right?
No. You're assuming they're unaware. Hold on, this goes back to Anthony's point.
I think I should give you one example. Like, you don't know.
Cyrus, your mic has like a.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you need to plug it in and out or something.
I don't know what it's you and Festus. It's you and Festus crossing.
It might have been. Okay.
Is it better now?
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and I was going to say, if you don't know the weight limits at an at the counter of some, I don't know, kind of airline, and then they give you a fine for having 25 extra kg in your luggage. You didn't know the limit, and they fined you. Or you're in a foreign country and you do, I don't know, 50 in the 60 zone or 60 in the 50 zone. You didn't even know that the speed limit in that particular part of that road in that particular country. You were unaware. You're innocent, but they still stop you, give you a fine. So what I'm trying to say is there are times you don't know.
You're not innocent. On those two examples, I'm laughing, right? Because I just came from Ghana, and there's so many people being told by luggage people, it's overweight, and you can see they can't lift the bag, they can't lift it themselves.
There was another,
you know,
there was another example. I'm sorry.
Don't drive abroad.
Oh, sorry.
If you don't know the speed limits and the rules, don't drive at home either, right? Don't drive.
Well, I mean, you can't know everything that you could possibly do until it happens. But I think it might have been Cyrus or something that said there's an aspect of when you believe that what you're doing is actually like causing you less suffering. Like there's times where like maybe you're aware that what you're doing is suffering, but you fully believe that there is no better alternative. The alternative is to just is worse. And so
your strategy can never be better than your current level of knowledge.
Yes.
But then again, when you're unaware of things that are coming, that is misfortune. And for that, you can steadfast, because they mostly, you don't know about them, and you're being tested by the Creator by sending those misfortunes on your way. So now what you have to do is not suffer, but to steadfast. Number one. Number two, what is the worst type of suffering for any?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's doing what I don't want to do deep down. You know, so
Anthony's and Ennis was similar, really, because they both said, well, something that is forced upon me.
Yeah, and there was like an experiment that they did with these rats once, where like they were somehow stimulating it to exercise, but whenever one rat would exercise, it would force the other one to exercise, and it actually had like hugely negative effects for the one that was forced to exercise. Now, by exercising, it was beneficial, but only when it was like chosen. And so when it's forced upon you, it can be very harmful. And so now for me, I feel like you have to choose in that moment, because in life, you're going to be forced to do things, to accept things you don't want to. And so I feel like there's a moment of where you have to come to terms and accept it, where you are accepting suffering, you are suffering, but in that you're allowing yourself to overcome it. It's like that little hump over the hill. You can keep trying to kind of avoid the hill and you keep rolling back down it, or you can kind of face that suffering, then go over the hill, and then now you can move on past that. If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. So,
It does, actually.
I want to acknowledge Cherry's comments. They say when we have a broken bone, we will fix it. We understand that we have to be extra gentle with it while it heals. When it comes to our minds, sometimes we don't give ourselves that same level of grace. I don't know what you were saying.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
You know, you see, now,
wait, Festus said. I didn't even. Festus said that, or did you?
Can Cyrus finish answering?
Hold on. So no, I might change my answer, Cyrus, right? To say maybe my worst level of pain is when I think I'm right and deep down I'm wrong. I know what I mean. No, literally.
No, that's deep. No, that's deep. And by the way, listen, Annie. By the way, that takes courage to say that. Honestly, I'm proud of you.
Yeah, that's a good one. If we could get everyone to be able to, that'd be a great one. If we could overcome that.
No, I literally was Zaral's analogy. You know, we're all those cups with cracks, all of us. You know, look, do you think I speak because I'm British? I speak because I've got 3 kids, right? The first 2 I fucked up so many times, and I'm just happy that they're still alive and they still talk to me. Really, I mean that sincerely, and they've turned out all right. You know, I thought I was right. You know, Nigerian parents, you know how it goes. I'm sure you all do, right? Doctor, accountant, lawyer. If not, you're a waste. But I know I'm wrong. You know, in 2025, it's just not. It's not correct. You know, my YouTube star kid could be easily richer than me. But you know, I'm saying no. But I learned from those 2 for my 3rd one. That's why I have my easygoing, calm approach. But also, I'm older as well. You know, and I'm much older now than I was. We were parents at 21. And I had 2 kids at 21. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue. Now I'm 51. Then my youngest, he gets the best of everything. You know, I like a dad. I got the greatest parents in the world. You do have the greatest parents. We'll make less mistakes. We'll have less cracks. But they have been filled in, you know, with that gold leaf that Sarah talked about. So that's why I look at life. Really. Let me stop talking.
You're going to ask me what is that worst type of suffering?
Yes, please.
Okay, I have to ask.
Go for it, Zara. Go for it.
You know, something like the worst suffering is not to scream, no, but the silence after it, and like not the wound, but forgetting why I bleeded, and not the fall, but the fear of rising again sometimes. Yeah, that's a little suffering worst sometimes.
Ooh,
That's a good one. Yeah. Damn.
there we go.
Yeah.
Aris, what do you make of all of those then? Yeah, well, tell us your worst kind of suffering, and then tell us what you make of our idea of what suffering is.
Wait, were you asked when you said a name? I wasn't sure.
That was Cyrus. Cyrus.
Oh, that was for me.
Yeah.
Well, for sharing your
now look
types
who was napping.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you. I'm just laughing.
Okay.
Calm, leave me alone.
Calm, you made me paranoid. I was like, did I really snore? So
point like a pig.
Oink oink. So for me, the worst kind of suffering is the one I have to repeat because I didn't learn from the first time around. That's the worst kind of suffering in my view. Okay, so when I see people like repeat the same kind of mistakes over and over and over, me included, right? Make the same mistakes over and over again, and that's the lesson you don't learn. You have to sit for that exam again, right? So you fail. You have to repeat it, and we all know history repeats itself, right? So if I don't learn from the same mistakes I made on my if I had learned from the same mistakes I made on the previous 7 practical driving test, I wouldn't have gone to the 8th one, would I? I passed it on the 8th time, yes, but
you wouldn't have had the second one, you know, by the Shaolin master. You know, the first one would have had so much that you would have learned.
8,
Your lucky number
8.
8.
I'm saying, but that's it.
Yeah, sometimes there's a lot more to learn. You know?
Number 2.
You might have learned something, but you need more.
A lot to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But have you done your driving test 8 times?
I did, yeah.
That's a lot, man. That's a lot.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
What kind of driving test is that over there? Like,
listen, I am the king of mistakes.
It's not, in the UK, it's not, you know, the biggest day ever. Bigger than any exam.
No, I'm not even sorry. I'm not even sorry. I'm the king of mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes, to be honest.
Honestly,
Hey,
Cherry,
we all
I
have
see what you say, Cherry. Mental suffering is more
suffering.
painful than physical, in my honest opinion. I hear you. You know, and definitely ties with what you're saying, Cyrus.
I think so.
Anthony,
I think it would be a waste. I think it would be a waste if you make the mistakes again and then don't learn from it and run after.
Unless you learn, maybe you learn even more in the thing. But
yes,
we're at 3 hours now, and with this topic again, did my headphones cut out? I think they did. Either way,
no, we're gonna hear
okay.
you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this has been there's so much I have to digest here on this one, and I don't know. I think if we already ended it really well, Cyrus, that question, the worst kind of suffering, was a really good question to kind of end it on. And if anyone has anything else that they want to say, I think we could just bag it up now, and then maybe if you guys are interested, we might have like a part 2 or something.
Anthony, I think I'm speaking for everyone when I say this was one of the best live events we have been on, and because of the depth of the conversation and how honest people shared, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate hearing that. I love all you guys. You guys are awesome. Like I can't believe I got so much of your time. It just seems like theft. Like how all of you are like however much money or time that you guys spend here, just to have your time like this is it really means a lot to me, especially when I'm so aggressive.
We like you. I said we genuinely like you. So as Sarah said,
yes, Anthony, I don't like you, so you will have to suffer by paying me back.
All right, man.
Pay me back, and you're gonna think about a way of doing that. Damn it!
I'll work on it.
I promise you, I'm gonna wear the power skirt on the live. So you lot think about that, right? That's what they wear. That's a tutus in Hawaii. Mike.
Yeah, Annie, I think. Annie, I think you should put 2 and 2 together and never use that example ever again. That 2-2 example, mate.
Hey, well, no, because you won't ever forget it now. It's
the mankini. Is that better? Bright red one, by the way.
Annie.
I'm going
as
there.
we thought when things can't get any worse.
Jeez.
Anthony, thank you so much. It is a deep conversation. Now, let's do it again. Let's do it again. So let's do it from your angle, whatever that is. Look, every day we grow, right? So I tell people I read books several times because what you read on day 1 is the same as day 2. On day 2, you're wiser. You know a bit more. You're more aware, and the words suddenly hit in a different kind of way, right? Same as these conversations, I think.
I think just trying to even nail down like a definition that we all kind of feel we can agree on, because it's hard, because even when we all understand a certain definition, we all have our experiences and our feelings linked to the definition that we have, and it just makes things more interesting. I think there's more depth to it like that. But yeah, Mike provided a song for us, and I think we'll just go ahead and we'll play that and close it out. Do I just play it, or is there I'll figure that out another time. I'll play it here, and then we'll just all
play it. Make sure the volume's up. So you see where the play button is further down.
Oh, yep.
Okay, that one works as well. There's a volume button somewhere.
I don't see volume.
I walked into the fire with trembling hands, not knowing gold was waiting in the flame. These scars are proof of healing, not of breaking.
On the right hand side, far right.
Oh, I'm sorry. What? Can you not hear it?
The volume? No, we can hear it, but the volume button's on the far right, as Mike just said. Let me comment.
Oh, yeah. So you guys all heard. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stop it then. All right, so.
My body learned to bend and still keep dancing. I don't thank the darkness for its weight. I thank what's left unburned. Not grateful that the storm came through my door, but grateful that I learned the gift wasn't the struggle. It was crossing to the other side where breath moves freely now, free of struggle, free of pain. There's a garden in my chest of who I've been. Each plant itself a threshold that I cross. The man who learned love means expanding, not erasing. The one who found his voice when all seemed lost. I celebrate them all for bringing me here. I don't thank the darkness for its weight. I thank what's left unburned. Not grateful that the storm came through my door, but grateful that I learned the gift wasn't the struggle. It was crossing to the other side where breath moves freely now, free of struggle, free of pain. My hands broke open, but learned to build with light, crafting something luminous from scattered pieces. Winter taught me roots run deeper than the frost. Spring sings loud that everything increases. I am both the breaking and the blooming. I don't thank the darkness for its weight. I thank what's left unburned. Not grateful that the storm came through my door, but grateful that I learned the gift wasn't the struggle. It was crossing to the other side where breath moves freely now, free of struggle, free of pain. The coffee tastes like miracles in morning light, steam rising like gratitude I finally feel. Laughter fills the spaces where the sorrow lived. Joy unexpected, radiant and real. Peace blooms wild in ordinary moments. I thank the me who walked into that darkness without a map or promise of return. Thank you, pain, for being temporary. Thank the fire for what it didn't burn. Grateful for the passage, not the cost. I don't thank the darkness for its weight. I thank what's left unburned. Not grateful that the storm came through my door, but grateful that I learned the gift wasn't the struggle. It was crossing to the other side where breath moves freely now, free of struggle, free of pain. Standing in the after, changed and whole, recognition without mourning what was lost. The gift wasn't the fire, it was learning how to cross where breath moves freely now, where breath moves freely now.
You guys are awesome. Thank you again. Sherry, thank you. I really did love having you guys here. I look forward to the next one, and we're going to have a good night. All right, guys? All right, and that's the end.